What you doing?
Ran out of space on my phone, so I'm deleting some stuff. Bye, singing dog. Bye, goal.
I pronounce you...
Bye, wedding ceremony.
Stop. At Metro PCS, you get 2 free phones with twice as much memory.
Really?
Don't say bye to your memories. Switch to Metro PCS and get 2 free LG K20 Plus phones with 32 gigs when you switch 2 lines. Metro PCS. Wireless. Figure it out. Coverage not available in some areas. Sales tax not included in phone price. Excludes numbers on the T-Mobile network. See store for details and terms and conditions.
Blog Talk Radio.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Thursday edition. I almost thought it was Wednesday, so forgive me. I'm tired today. Long night at the fair last night, sorry. Today's the big day. I'm so excited I can hardly stand it. Obviously, to those that have been watching over the last few days, you know that I've been posting up the show constantly every 5 minutes, so it would seem, because, of course, it's a tribute to one of my biggest idols, which is, of course, Marilyn Monroe. Not very often. In fact, it is the first time, I had to think, that we are actually doing a show dedicated to someone who is obviously deceased and no longer alive. So to me, it's always very important to try to combine some of the best elements possible to make for a good show. And by that, what I mean is bringing in a bunch of players or individuals who have contributed to the legacy of her life in one fashion or another. I've been very lucky and fortunate today to have 4 different guests and individuals who can bring to the table various facets of Marilyn Monroe. First of which we're going to start with is Gillette, who's representing Marilyn Wines. He's going to come online and talk to us about different offerings that they have and just about Marilyn herself. So without further ado, let's get on the roll and see what Gillette's got to say. Hello.
Hi, this is Gillette.
Hi, Gillette. This is Cindy, finally.
Cindy, wonderful to talk with you today.
Oh my gosh, I'm so very excited. I can't stand it. I mean, this is going to be so much fun. I've never done a 2-hour show before in 4 different increments, so this is a little different for me. So thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for sending the wine. Thank you for allowing me to do this. I appreciate it.
We appreciate the time, and being able to talk about these wines is really fun and really great.
Oh, wonderful. Well, good. I kind of want to step back a little bit. I usually like to stem back from the beginning to try to kind of discover how a business has actually grown. So we're going to start back from the beginning, back in 1981 to be exact. I know that the owners had commenced homemaking of wine with the actual Marilyn concept itself formulating in 1983. And then in 1985, a limited amount of Marilyn Monroe had been produced. Now, can you tell me, do you have any knowledge on what was their primary reasoning or what did they cite was their primary reason for choosing Marilyn herself and not someone else?
Well, I think that it was one of these things where you're sitting around and Bob and Donna Holder had planted some Merlot grapes on their property and were probably thinking about, like you do when you start the wine business, start growing grapes, and you might want to do a label just to sell a little bit of wine here and there, what kind of name you would have. And they were sitting around with a group of friends, dining room table, probably having a couple glasses of Merlot. And I'm not exactly sure where the idea came from besides that table, but somebody said, how about Marilyn Monroe? And they loved the alliteration.
Okay.
And they loved the iconic... Yeah, they loved the iconic idea. They loved it. Just seemed to flow and fit, and so from that idea stemmed 27 years of Marilyn.
Okay, and I understand, of course, because they started with Merlot. It logically makes sense that would have been the first product. Can you tell me, just from a wine standpoint, that is the Merlot actually easier to make or process than some of the other wine types?
I don't think so. I'm not a winemaker, so I don't know the intricacies of producing Merlot. But from what I do know, it's not a very difficult grape to grow, and I think turning it into a Merlot is just more about giving it the proper barrel regimen, the proper treatments, and staying out of the way of really good grapes.
Oh, definitely. I agree with you. Any knowledge as it relates to, I was curious, they did that very first batch so many years ago. How did the first sales go, like that first batch that they did?
I think the first sales were really good, and it wasn't a lot like most winemakers. And if you're smart, or even if you're just when it's about the heart and not about the economics, you start something and people understand that, and that's what draws them into great wine brands. So It went very well, and almost every year thereafter, it's been a strong brand.
Well, I could imagine.
It didn't hurt. Sorry.
Go right ahead.
It didn't hurt starting in California, where Marilyn probably has the most amount of followers, and it started at a time where Merlot was really starting to pick up speed.
Nice. Very nice. Okay, I want to switch gears a little bit to talk about John McKay. And for those that don't know, you're head winemaker whose career has spanned over 25 years in this business, which I find amazingly incredible. How did you obtain him to work with Marilyn Wines? And what talents does he have to offer that help to account for the quality of your wine?
Well, John was brought on board before we started representing the Marilyn line. However, it has been since since the 1996 vintage. He and I were just talking about this last week, and we were going back and forth whether it was the 95 vintage or the 96.
Okay.
John's been the winemaker for a number of wonderful Napa Valley wineries. He's had a great name for years, and I think it's just something that he knew the holders, and he loved what they were doing, and he likes the wine that they're working with, and the grapes and the growers, and that's what John wants. He wants just the integrity that's going to be in the products that he works with, because honestly, John doesn't have to go out and work too much if he doesn't want to these days.
Gotcha. I understand. Might you happen to know, have there been occasions, I've always wanted to ask this, bad batches, do those occur? Is that a regular occurrence?
It's certainly not a regular occurrence if you know what you're doing. And so the question's interesting because it brings up two different things. One is a bad vintage, which Mother Nature deals you a difficult vintage, and you have to work with the grapes. Sometimes it rains, sometimes it may maybe too much sun where we'll get cracking in the grapes. Sometimes, we'll get mold on the grapes. And then winemakers have to be very good at what they do to bring a wine out of that and to work with it. Obviously, that's what makes the difference between a good winemaker and just a winemaker, because anybody can make good wine in a great vintage. Again, as I said before, it's like getting out of the way. As far as bad batches of the wine itself is concerned, generally not. This is part science, part artistry, but the science plays a very important role. And so what yeast strains they're using, what fermentation processes they're using, that's all pretty textbook. And you don't see per se a batch of wine go bad. Vintages come and go.
Okay. Gotcha. Perfect. Okay, good. Thank you for explaining that, because I've always wondered that, too. I've always said to myself, they can't be perfect 24/7. So I thought, well, I'll just throw that out there. I want to talk a little bit about the process itself. In doing a little bit of research, I found that the products that you carry have very vastly different release times. Like I'll give you, for instance, like the Norma Jean bottle is released 6 weeks after the grapes are harvested, whereas the Merlot is 20 months. So maybe just explain for us a little bit about how how do you establish that, or how does that level get established, and also which wine has the shortest and the longest span as far as time of release?
Absolutely. Well, so there's been a couple little changes. One is that we used to release Marilyn on June 1st, and the Marilyn Merlot June 1st on her birthday, and we would release Norma Jean, as you pointed out, 6 weeks after the wines were harvested and bottled, which it was very much in the fashion of a Beaujolais Nouveau, if you will. And then, likewise, we release a Sauvignon Blanc. So there's a couple things. With release times, you want the wine to be ready, and so you want to give it the appropriate time, both in its fermentation process as well as in the bottle, just to rest and kind of age a little bit before the release. So for us, the Marilyn Merlot is a very serious Merlot. It's historically always come out of Napa Valley. Grapes that are very accepting and conducive to a nice long oak regimen. We have made some changes with the Norma Jean. We don't release it quite as soon as we used to. So we've changed the release dates for Norma Jean to the spring of the following year after harvest. So this case, we're in the 2012 Merlot, and we're releasing that in the spring of 2013, where it is seeing a bit of an oak regiment, and we are spending a little bit more time. It's just it's a recent source of grapes that we have that we find really good and encourages some winemaking influences. So part of when you release is when the market is accepting of certain products. We've changed the Marilyn Merlot to a release date of September 1st, mostly because the market said if we're going to have a $30 Merlot, we don't necessarily want it on the floor all summer long. People tend to buy spring and summer, and this is a generality, but more cheap and cheerful. So it's perfect for Sauvignon Blancs. It's perfect for Norma Jean. And then when they get more serious about their big reds, and they want to start drinking those more in the fall. And as I said, that's a generalization, but that's what the retailers see.
Okay.
And then as far as your second question was about ageability. And best I can tell you anecdotally, twice this year we've done verticals of the Marilyn Merlot, and we've gone back into the mid to early 90s for those tastings. And depending upon your taste profile and what you like, if you like a good aged red, our mid 90s are holding up beautifully, as well as right through the 2000 decade.
Oh, nice.
So
very nice.
That's a lot of fun. So, and again, they age as well as any other expectation of a high-end Napa Valley Merlot and or Cabernet that one would expect. The Norma Jean has probably got a life, of about 5, 6, 7 years. Most people are consuming that within the first 48 hours of bringing it home, I believe. So I don't know if we'll ever get a true test.
Look at that. How funny is that? See, folks are getting like a big education about this, and I like this because there is a lot to wine. There's a lot to know about winemaking, wine purchasing, all that good stuff. So thank you so much for telling us some of this. This next statement is going to come, I'm assuming this is going to come as a shock to folks that don't know Marilyn Wines that well, and I almost had a heart attack, actually, when I was researching, just to let everyone know, the Marilyn Wines price, as far as price-wise goes, you're at the very low end of $18, with the most expensive bottle I saw being $12,000. Now, I don't know if this is altered, if my information is still current, which I'm assuming yes it is, or no.
$12,000 might. I've not quoted that and before, so it might be a stretch. What we are very proud of is that some of the verticals, depending on what years the verticals begin and end with, like a 10-year vertical of say starting with 1999 and going up to 2008, or especially the more recent ones that started in 2001 and end in 2010, which include our 2009 25th anniversary. We're seeing those being sold for $7,000-8,000, sometimes $9,000. So the idea that Marilyn is a very one of the fastest appreciating wines coming out of Napa Valley is absolutely true over the years, and of course. If somebody's missing a vintage and they want to have the vertical, that's where the demand really picks up. And certainly if anybody wants the coveted 1985 vintage, which was the premier offering, that bottle seems to be going for pretty good sums of money right now as well.
Oh, I imagine, definitely. Now, just out of curiosity, in your own, as far as the company standpoint goes, maybe explain to me a little bit, because we all live in the day and age now where celebrity wines are becoming a big thing. And I don't mean necessarily deceased. For instance, you've got housewives doing wines, et cetera. How do you feel personally that your line differs from, let's say, theirs?
Well, one of the things is that the philosophy of the holders from the very beginning was that they started out by making serious wines, and Marilyn was a playful Marilyn Merlot or Sauvignon Blanc or Norma Jean, a young Merlot, were all playful ways to communicate what they were doing, but it never felt to me, and I think most of the people who have been following this for a long time, that it was a profiteering commercial endeavor. I'm not saying that it hasn't been profitable. It's just that it's been about the quality of the wine, and that was the name. And we were also one of the leaders in, I think, celebrity wines. And I think also, every day we hear something different about Marilyn. Marilyn has been such an incredibly iconic figure that I think what would surprise a lot of your listeners is that, the average age, the demographic of our consumer is a 51-year-old woman. And
wow.
Everybody thinks, the guys buy it, or people who used to buy it are all getting older. And that's just saying that, the average. We have, from 42 to 51 are really where the collectors, the drinkers, the gift givers are coming in. And we're pretty fortunate. We have a huge database of people who buy from us, and we're able to collect all that information and, really understand who our consumer is.
I imagine, definitely. Do you have any plans, and forgive me if I don't know this because I couldn't confirm this before we came on air, you're not like some of the other companies out there in which case you offer like a signature wine club or things along those lines, or has that ever been a thought?
Well, it's usually been people that our wine club almost is more along the lines of, those who go online and find Marilyn and, just either via online or via telephone, put in their orders. But also our wines are very well distributed by our wholesale network throughout the United States and, over a dozen countries around the world. So the wines tend to be fairly available throughout. Now, they do also sell out fairly quickly, too. But from a retail point, the wine should be found. And then, otherwise, there's sort of a club, but not totally. A club in kind of the traditional sense.
I understand. Gotcha. Because, sometimes people like to know that because I, of course, have done the wine club thing, on the smaller levels and such. And especially with the demand being so high, I wouldn't be shocked that people would just line up for something like that. But obviously they have the online resource. We're going to get into that in a little bit. I kind of want to switch gears to talk about product names. Kind of want to throw this out there to the individuals that are listening because your picks have emphasized this blonde beauty that we love so very nicely in the form of how you name your wines. Meaning we've got the Marilyn Monroe, the Marilyn Meritage, the Marilyn Cabernet, along with the Sauvignon Blonde, the Norma Jean, Blonde Noir, and Red Dress I also saw. Few questions relative to this, product-wise. Now, it might sound, in your opinion, this might sound a little odd to inquire, but was there any facet of Marilyn added to your wine, meaning like particular grapes she liked or particular brand she drank, that sort of thing?
No, I don't believe that, from the research that I've seen, that she didn't necessarily have well, I think she had an affinity for champagne. And, and in fact, we do a Blonde Noir, and, I think that shows pretty well. It's a true, method champenoise, sparkling, and so that's a great tribute to her. And I think what she would maybe prefer to have in a glass, but otherwise, not necessarily that she was a big fan of Merlot or Sauvignon Blanc per se.
Okay, I gotcha. I understand. Now, do you foresee, and I'm going to assume this is the case, do you foresee a probable demand for new product at some given point in time, or did you just reevaluate every year and then determine we're going to come out with something different?
We try to have we try to have fun with new releases and with new ideas, but we do get new ideas thrown at us pretty regularly, and and come up with those ourselves. But what we have to weigh that against is the brand of Marilyn and making sure that we're going to come out with a product that has a longevity. So over the years, we have done, you pointed out, many of them. We started out with the Marilyn Merlot. We went to a Norma Jean, which is a young Merlot. It's not quite the ageability and everything, so it's been a fun kind of play on words, and then a Sauvignon Blanc. We have a Blanc de Noir. And then in the middle of that, we released, there was only a few pictures from Playboy, and we came out with the Velvet collection. And so these were a series of a few of the Playboy pictures that we did, and did a beautiful box set, 1.5s. The labels were the first peel and peek labels, so they were completely covered when you bought it, but then you could peel the plastic back and see the original Playboy photo. So that was an exciting, 3 years of a release. And we did a one-time release, the Red Dress. Not everybody knows the story behind Red Dress. It was a 2004 wine that we just never bottled, and we just held back, and was tasting fantastic. Really good vintage for us. Anyways, the Red Dress was perfect for releasing a wine 7 years later, and it was the inside joke was that our 7-year itch. We held the wine long enough, and we had to let it go. And so that was 7 years in the bottle before releasing it. And then just last year, towards the holidays, we released Marilyn Meritage. And Marilyn Meritage is a blend of Cabernet Franc, Merlot, Malbec, and Petit Verdot, the classic Bordeaux blend. And it comes in a 6-pack and with beautiful pro print. So this is the first vintage release. And first vintage releases for us get a whole lot of attention, especially when a wine is as credible and as ageable as something like this.
Well,
so yes,
I imagine.
New releases, lots of inspiration, and lots of fun. But it's not something like we feel every year we have to launch something new, because every year we change the photo on every one of the products. So for us, we're already busy with what photo are we going to use, how's it going to look, how does the glass look, what detail are we going to put on the photo, how does it need to be photoshopped, and so every year is a new year, every release is a new project for us.
Wonderful, I gotcha. Now, just out of curiosity, and this is merely curiosity because I myself was out recently and had the 3 Olives, which is the Maryland vodka product that they have out there. Curious to ask, have you yourself tried some of the other Maryland products, not just to compare necessarily, but just out of idle curiosity or research purposes, just to kind of find out what's out there?
Well, I have not tried any of the Maryland swimming suit line or the clothing line at Macy's, which is all inspired by her designs. But and so my point is that there's a number of cosmetics. MAC Cosmetics has a Maryland line. Most tend to be more feminine related. So
I know, but the alcohol side of things. Alcohol is all general. Yeah.
Have I tried the 3 Olives vodka? No, I haven't. Yeah. But I did hear just recently. In fact, I think I've been in New York the past 8 days, and I had a retailer describe it to me, and it was a very favorable description of the vodka, and they've been having a lot of success with it.
Oh, yes, definitely. It's very, very good, actually. I've only had it a few times, but really nice. I mean, obviously your wine is superior, but I must say that I do like the vodka as well, so I got to throw it out there.
Well, we're different type products, and very happy to share the Maryland iconic position with them.
Nice, very nice. Now, this is a note to the consumers, of course. Now, I understand that they can obtain your selections online. They can also go to their local wine retailers, but I'm assuming that the best way to experience these wines is, of course, at the tasting room, which is located in Oakville, California. 2 questions, curious about that. Approximately, if you know, how many visitors a year have gone through the doors there? And also, are there tours available, or is it just a tasting room in and of itself?
We share a tasting room in Oakville on the corner of Highway 29 and Oakville Crossing, and we share that with I think, I could be wrong, about 14 other wineries, and each of the wineries has its own area. So we don't do tours. It's the Napa Valley Wine Company. It's a wonderful production facility that does top-notch wines. I think they'll be recognized by many people. And but as far as there's nothing as far as tours. It's more about the tasting experience there, and the number of people that go through. God, I would have needed a heads up for this one. There's
Sorry.
So I don't necessarily know, but all I can tell you is that Highway 29 is one of the more trafficked areas, and certainly the main thoroughfare through Napa Valley, and we are right on the corner of one of the most prestigious growing regions in Napa Valley. So I suspect the parking lot, as far as I'm concerned, parking lot is always filled when I go by, and there's a steady flow of people going in.
Okay. Now I've got two more questions for you because, oh, my God, our time is almost running out already. Isn't this fun? I mean, it just comes and goes so quickly I can't stand it. I should have had you on for an hour, but I only had a half an hour to give you, and I feel bad about that. I want to throw this first question out because it's important, especially for people that are listening. I found that there is a Twitter handle, which is @Marilyn_Merlot. I saw that there was a Facebook page entitled Marilyn Merlot, www.marilynwines.com. I also noticed that you're on Pinterest, which I'm not real familiar with what that is, but I noticed that you're on there. Are there any other ways, social media-wise, for people to find you?
Well, those are three very good ways. Facebook, we post a lot on Facebook, both through internationalvines.net. www.internationalvines.net has information on Marilyn that we post quite regularly. Certainly the website that you mentioned that I think Greg Holder and the Holder family has monitored and developed very beautifully.
Okay.
And I believe it's Pinterest. Which is a wonderful social media form of posting photos, pictures. It's almost like a whole, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. That's what this is all about. And we love showing our wines when they come out new on that, and our packaging.
Okay.
Certainly a whole lot of followers. So those are the big ones. I think you got the biggest place where people can go. And then also Marilyn Monroe has a Facebook, which I believe from time to time we show some of our products on, and that has over 6 million followers.
I gotcha. Wow, how cool is that, eh? Okay, now in the last 3 minutes, I'm going to go walk into my kitchen because what everybody else does not know, unless you're a very good friend of mine, is that some time ago, Gillette had sent me a whopping 10, and I sent 10 bottles of Marilyn Monroe wine. I actually got to taste each and every one of them. I can tell you that I will give you my personal favorite, which is actually the Norma Jean. It actually turned out to be Norma Jean. She's my favorite, actually, out of tasting all the various different kinds of wines. And so I have to say that was my absolute favorite. I have to thank you so much for doing that because I can't even tell you. In fact, a lot of it's still sitting here because it's so good. It's so rich with flavor. It's so perfectly made. And I'm not saying that just because Norma Jean is on it. It legitimately is a bona fide, wonderful product. And I would gladly walk into the store and pay that amount. In fact, as we speak, I don't know if y'all can hear this, but I'm actually pouring it because I thought if I corked it on the air, it wasn't going to sound right. So I'm legitimately pouring a drink as we speak. You're my first pick for a reason, so that everybody can put their glasses up and do a toast to Marilyn Monroe. Because she deserves it and because it's our tribute show today. Do you have a personal favorite?
I think that I tell you, I have like you're saying, I have great reaction to Norma Jean because it tends to be, it's very cost effective. It's probably a $14 bottle of wine, and and so it over delivers by far. The Marilyn is a great aging. The 97. So do I have a favorite? The 1997 Marilyn Merlot I absolutely adore. I think it's fantastic. And then I think for those who can find and they're more rare, the Meritage and the Blonde de Noir, again, both are made in an exceptional fashion. The Meritage is all Napa Valley, high-end product, high-end grapes. And, you're asking me for a favorite. I guess, depends on mood, but they're very, very well made wines, and I'll give you a major bang for the buck.
Oh, definitely, without a doubt, 100%. Well, this has been lovely. I have liked this so very much. There's unfinished business that you and I have. I will tell you that since we're at the end of the interview, I will let everyone else know this. And Gillette, I don't think I informed you of this, but every individual that comes on my show, inclusive of everyone today, I'm actually bringing a book out in the next couple of months where every one of my guests can actually put their product in there with a picture of themselves, myself. I would like to extend, of course, to Marilyn Wines the same courtesy. You're more than welcome to come on board and publicly market yourself in my book. I hope that you'll say yes. If not, that's okay. Anytime you need a sampler for anything, you just give Cindy a call. I'm going to be visiting California eventually. Yes, I would definitely like to come in.
That's such a great idea.
Oh, it is, definitely. I think the response has been wonderful. I have already found a publisher, so I'm very, very excited. I'm in the crux of writing as we speak. And this weekend might be a very, very good time for me to kind of get finishing up on the touches. The photographer's already working. Everything's in play. I just want a section for Marilyn, so we'd be more than happy to bring you on board. I'd really appreciate it.
Well, call me anytime, and we'll make sure that Greg and Donna and Bob Holder are all part of that as well.
I would definitely love that, certainly, 100%. And I certainly want to keep you too long because I know you've got a lot of busy things to do. So, again, I just want to say from Cindy Chat Corner, all the fans, everybody listening, I cannot thank you enough for your patience, for your cooperation, for your product. And certainly at the end of the interview, I'll remind everybody where to be able to find you. And I'll touch base with you via email soon.
Cindy, I really appreciate your great questions and your curiosity and all of the wonderful information that you've been able to bring to your listeners. So we appreciate your time, and this was a lot of fun.
Oh, great. Well, thank you so much, my dear. I'll be talking to you before the weekend comes.
Okay, Cindy. Sounds great. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, folks, in case you did not happen to get in on the very beginning of that particular interview, just to let everybody know, that was Gillette, who happens to be a representative of the actual branded Marilyn Wines company itself. Again, kudos to him on not only sending 10 bottles of wine, but just being so patient and cooperative as we've had to realign doing this show 2 different times. Again, want to throw a reminder out there. Facebook, it's Marilyn Monroe, and that's 2 words. They have a Twitter handle, which is at Marilyn_Merlot, that's Merlot, and that's without me even drinking. Great. www.marilynwines.com, and of course he has a link up there on Pinterest, if I'm not mistaken. So Gillette's an absolutely wonderful human being. He was quite helpful and quite informative, I have to say. I was very impressed about his knowledge with the company because he's been with them for a significant amount of time, as I understand it. Owners are absolutely wonderful people, and as I said, I have had just plenty of time to be able to taste in all the different variations that he sent me. And I do admit that they are all very quality products. And yes, because I'm a Marilyn fanatic, I've been drinking them. But honestly, it's a true quality product. In a lot of ways, it's worth the money that's well spent because, like we're mentioning, I believe the average bottle is going to cost you $14 or $15. And keep in mind, of course, those more exorbitant price tags are obviously because, of course, the value of the wine and, of course, the aging, et cetera, et cetera. So thanks again to him for all of that. Coming up very shortly, we're going to be having our next guest, which is Donelle, and I feel very badly because Donelle informed me much earlier today that she was not feeling very well. And so it was kind of a begging and pleading for her, and we both kind of mutually agreed that she would come on the show. So I'm going to hope that we don't need to keep her more than 30 minutes as it relates to the Hollywood Museum. To those of you that don't know what this entity is, obviously, it's in Hollywood, California. It is not just the holder and benefactor of Marilyn items, but also more than 10,000 showbiz features. And when I say that, I mean old Hollywood, I mean new Hollywood. Just a plethora of information as it relates to all sorts of icons in the business. Interestingly enough, I found out that the actual first original owner of this particular museum was that cosmetics giant Max Factor, if you remember who he was, who is just the giant as it relates to makeup. In fact, they have an homage to him in the museum. What's nice is that the museum in the past has offered various different events. And when I say that, I mean not just Marilyn events, but they've done red carpet events for charity. They've also done a Valentine's Day event. In the past, they've kind of rotated some of their exhibitions around so that this way, they had different things to offer, and not necessarily just TV or not necessarily this. I know that now recently they added in the Harry Potter thing. They've done science fiction. They've had a horror room in the past. All of these particular things have all been mixed up. They have just a vast amount of individuals that come to the museum every year to become visitors, come in, take a look, examine. The prices are relatively reasonable as I researched and found out. It's approximately $15, I believe, for adults, $12 for seniors and for students, and if I'm not mistaken, it's a whole whopping $5 for children. So it's also economical, which is the other thing that I liked, because if you've gone to like the Hollywood, or excuse me, not Hollywood, I don't think, but the Wax Museum or some of the other establishments, they're just not that inexpensive. I mean, I realize that it's a quality product, and I realize it's one of those memorable moments, but unfortunately, some of these things are just very unaffordable. So in this particular regard, I'm very excited to talk about this. I mean, I've got a bunch of different questions. She's not calling in as of yet, so maybe let's go back and do a little discussion about some of my reflections as it relates to Marilyn Monroe. Kind of goes without saying that when a woman goes and spends 2 hours of her time dedicating a show to one icon, there has to be a particular reason for that. And there is. I had a very dear friend of mine who asked me a very interesting question the other day. He kind of sat me down and he said, Sin, tell me what it is about Marilyn Monroe that you like so very much, or what is it about her that you find so impressive? What I don't think that most people know, or if you're at least friends of mine, you know at some level, or I've explained why it is that this woman has such an influence on me. First of all, at the very basic level, I think for the amount of tribulation along with some of the obstacles that she had over the course of time, not only in the business, but within her marriage confinements, within her family, with the drugs, with the alcohol, for some of the little that she had to work with support-wise, I think she ventured out to be wonderfully versed as an individual. I think it takes a lot of tenacity and strength to overcome such huge obstacles. And back in that day, remember, this isn't the Hollywood era now. I mean, back in those days, things are handled very differently. There was such a proverbial casting couch, if you will. Sadly, and oftentimes there were individuals who ended up just having to do certain things just to break into the business. For instance, as sexual as Marilyn had alluded to be, I had a very difficult time with picturing her really being comfortable with taking her clothes off or posing for Playboy along those lines. Her and I both have that similarity. I've never posed naked. I don't plan on posing naked. I don't plan on doing anything. But when you're in radio, I don't think you really have anybody coming at you to say, would you like to bare your clothes and all? So I'm pretty lucky in that particular regard. So I don't know that necessarily, even though she was comfortable with sexuality, the concept and idea of was she comfortable with taking her clothes off for the purposes of working, I thought was an interesting dynamic, because in my opinion, just in all the research I've done and in watching her, she just didn't seem like that was her forte. And additionally, back in those days, how many times did you ever see, in fact, I don't think I've ever seen her in a movie that I recall anyway, where she was required to be naked. So in and of itself, that is one of the fascinating parts of her. But back to some of our similarities, and I'll cover a bunch of these because to me, this is what or where I derive my love of Marilyn from. First of all, it's been plainly and bluntly obvious to most people that ever follow Marilyn Monroe that she had a significant issue as it relates to her mental health. Now, obviously, her mother suffered from schizophrenia. I don't know, and maybe somebody can let me know this either during the show or after the show, if she was ever clinically diagnosed. Some people have said bipolar, some people have said schizophrenia, some people have said paranoid, some people have said personality disorder. So honestly, I'm not really sure if that fact has ever been cleared up. And if you're a regular listener to my show, then you first and foremost already know that I am a significant sufferer from a mental health disorder, bipolar disorder, which in some ways I think is a blessing and a curse, because just as she was very multi-talented and creative, I am as well. But for a lot of that comes a lot of heartache and a lot of sleepless nights and a lot of mind racing, etc. So first and foremost, we share the mental health aspect. I always viewed her in a number of different films that I've watched, or even in some of the interviews that she's done, either on television or otherwise. She always alluded to be extremely underconfident. She had an extremely difficult time with accepting the fact that she was such an icon, that she was so well established in her career because of her doing. And yes, she had help along the way, let's say from Lee Strasberg or some of the other ones that worked with her. But the reality of the situation was she just lacked confidence in every area of her life, whether it was her family, whether it was her work, whether it was her as a woman, as a person, as a mother. I think that was just an immensely difficult thing for her. I, too, of course, have the similarity in that regard. You know, I've been told over the course of this last 2 years on my radio show that I do immensely well. I have celebrities that tell me I produce some amazingly quality radio show interviews, but I'm just a regular average girl. If you'd ask most of my friends, they would tell you I'm just regular average Sid. There's nothing real special about me. I'm gifted if you say that I'm gifted. Let's put it that way. So we share that as well. Her inability to recognize her own beauty, I think, is another thing that we both share, and something that's painfully obvious. I think that although she was able to play to the camera very well, take some beautiful photos, be in beautiful dresses or outfits, or oftentimes be out with other individuals that she considered to be beautiful or glamorous, let's say, she never really bought 100% into that, at least in my own opinion. I just don't know that she truly thought when she looked in the mirror, oh my goodness, this blonde bombshell, or this woman that women just, you know, or men line up to see or want autographs from, or so enthralled by your work. I think she kind of almost envisioned herself as not really being any kind of a stigma or any kind of an icon, but rather just an average ordinary person who just ended up being Marilyn Monroe. I, too, of course, share that. If any of you are my friends on Facebook, or if you see me in public or otherwise, you automatically know that despite the fact that people must remind me of the fact that they think that I'm attractive, I have a very hard time owning that as well, actually. I'm getting to be 44, and everything's kind of sagging, and I've had a bunch of kids, and, you know, I'm just aging as we speak. So sometimes recognizing your own beauty is hard, and I say that just because not only do I think that she couldn't recognize it outward, I most certainly note from some of her last interviews in particular that she really was uncertain of the beauty inside of her as well, which I think is why 9 times out of 10 you would see the sadness on her face more so than the smiles, because I do feel that some of those smiles are almost factory generated, for lack of a better term. So that was another thing. Next on the lineup, of course, we all remember that she had a troubled childhood. That kind of goes without saying. There's, again, been conflicted stories about how many homes she was in, how many places she was transferred to. What seems pretty consistent was her inability to know who her father was. And of course the certain specifications about Gladys, her mother, and 1 or 2 of the family homes that she was happiest with, one of which she was molested in apparently. So there's a very long lineage there about her having such a troubled childhood, which would explain a lot, I think, in terms of just her feeling so insignificantly loved, or feeling or reaching out, always being so fearful of everyone leaving her all the time. That was one of those poignant moments that I got out of watching the recent production, My Week with Marilyn. If any of you have seen that, that's one poignant fact, was that she always was projected on screen anyways through the course of this movie as someone that just could never be left alone, whether it's on set, whether it was at home, whether it was any place. She just needed individuals around her, and that was whether it was her husband or other individuals. So I think a lot of that stemmed from having such a troubled childhood. Now, I myself was very fortunate. I had a troubled childhood. Then again, most of us have at some given point in time or another, unfortunately, have come from chaos or have come from, that sorts of things. So I think that does play a part in the eventual person that we ended up seeing on screen, of course. The next thing that I wanted to speak about is the 2-image concept, which is Norma Jean and, of course, Marilyn Monroe. Obviously, to those of you who are familiar with Marilyn in any regard, or if you pick up any kind of a book whatsoever, first thing you'll ever learn about Marilyn Monroe is that she was formerly Norma Jean Baker, of course. There was a movie, and I was trying to research today, and again, forgive me, so someone can let me know after the show or during, of course. There was a movie, Ashley Judd had been in it, actually, where she had actually played, I believe, the younger version of Marilyn Monroe, and then I believe Mira Sorvino had played the older version, where she was the blonde, of course. And there were so many reflective moments throughout the course of that movie where you were watching Marilyn Monroe looking in the mirror, and the only thing she could see was not Marilyn, but she could see Norma Jean. And that's 9 times out of 10 what she often saw. And the image of Norma Jean was taunting to her and very subjective about a number of things, and very harsh in the way that she spoke, and just critical about everything that she had did. I truly believe that in some folks, and this holds true for myself, and I have other friends who are relatively similar, it's kind of like that pretty face that we all put on when we go out to the bar, for instance, or when we're in a crowd of elective friends and support systems, where everyone is kind of standing around us and saying, oh, we adore you, and huggy, kissy, and you're just the life of the party and the center of attention, i.e. Marilyn Monroe. You know, any room that she ever walked in, whether it was a restaurant, a bathroom, even if it was a guest appearance, standing on top of that, as we all remember, the illustrious 7-Year Itch particular movie, all of that. And no matter where she went, she just magnified a room. Even when she met someone for the very first time, they spoke about her being so eloquent and just her touch and just being blown away by that. In some senses, that's what I'm referring to. And then on the opposite side of the fence, you have the Norma Jean, which is young and abandoned and neglected and lonely and unloved and all of those feelings. And so I can totally imagine what it must be like to be one version when you're out, and then you come home, and then you're that secondary version that you think that not everybody can accept or appreciate or like. It's a very, very different way of looking at things, I think. Very interesting, I thought, especially the dual image. Next to which, obviously, I don't want to spend too much time talking about this, only because, yes, it's a reality of life, but moreover, I think it's not necessarily fair to dwell on it too much. We're all familiar with the fact and have seen lots and lots of research and information as it relates to Marilyn's what I call addictive personality. I've done enough research to believe that I have one solid opinion about this. And when I say that, I mean her usage of drugs, alcohol, or whatever else was her poison, obviously. You've seen multitudes of pictures, et cetera, where she's been holding champagne or drinking or, oftentimes I haven't seen a whole lot of the pill-popping pictures per se. I guess it depends on what book you read. But the bottom line is we all know that she was using to perform, using in her personal life to feel better, using for energy, etc. Now, half of me believes that because I am a mental health patient as well, sometimes we do acquire an addictive personality. Sometimes it's a wonderful escape to use drugs or alcohol to kind of cope with what's going on with your brain, if you will. But I'm very hell-bent on believing that her addictive personality only went so far, and then the Hollywood types kind of kicked in and basically wanted to keep her either doped up so much or doped down so much to be able to perform to their liking or to be able to use her in whatever manner that they saw fit. So I can definitely relate to that. I do think that the media and the press became way overblown as it relates to having to plaster all over to the universe that she was using, that she was a drunk, or that she was some kind of a pill-popping idiot, or even worse yet, the obvious, which is the dumb blonde syndrome, which we've all heard about 8,000 times. I've learned a lot and I've known enough to know that even though she might have felt ignorant at the time in using these drugs, or it altered her perception of herself or her situation or things around her, what I do know for certain is that there isn't one person alive now that could ever convince me that Marilyn Monroe was such an addict that at the end of her life, when things were finally starting to improve, that she would take it upon herself to take so many drugs that she'd end up overdosing herself. I can't believe that, which is, of course, the stigma and the thing that we all talk about out in the real world as it relates to this conspiracy theory, for lack of a better term. Ironic, isn't it? There's the JFK and then there's the Marilyn Monroe. That's a whole other show in and of itself. But the reality of the situation being is, was she a user? Yes, by her own means to some extent. Did she die because of it? Hell no, as I'll go on record for saying. And I know that there's plenty of other people that are out there on that too. But I am hoping that one day when I go out to those pearly gates and I get a chance to hopefully meet her, because she's a nice floating angel who I hope can actually listen to this today, that would be the one question I would want to ask God, because I believe that at those gates you have one moment to ask anything you ever wanted to know. And I would want to know, of course, who took this beloved angel away from us way, way so soon. Sorry, it makes me sad, makes me kind of well up, so we should move on to the next thing. Her failed marriages. I guess we all at one given point in time or another have had those experiences where we've gone through a relationship or two or three. I myself obviously went through great heartache not so long ago, and I'm still kind of in the crux of trying to get out of it. But we've all had our share of failed relationships. I don't know if her relationships were, meaning the failure of it, were based upon certain entities, like just the partners not being the same. I understand that she could be sassy and quite a handful at times. i.e. myself as well. But, you have to look at that. I think that correlates with the whole conception of her wanting to have real, true, genuine love. I don't know that she felt that as a child. I'm not so certain that she felt that as an adult. I know that men were most likely oftentimes more enamored with her than she was with them. I know that this overwhelming burning desire to have a baby or to have a child and just to have a marriage and have a normal life was something. Normalcy seemed very, very important to this woman. And it's so very sad to me that she's never able to find some comfort, some peace, some form of happiness to where she looked and appeared and acted in every way, shape, or form, I should say, like a peaceful, satisfied woman. I didn't see that from the beginning. I didn't see that, in the highlight of her career, especially towards the end of her career, certainly. Just that desire to be loved and to be appreciated. And I think the only time she felt most appreciated was either truly when she was performing in front of a camera or at times when her fans weren't flocking her necessarily, but just keeping her going and reassuring her and making her believe more in herself than she possibly could. I know that I've done a lot of research and reading about her being used by particular men. I think her first marriage was a perfect scenario of that. I think some of the men that wanted to run around and take advantage of her as far as putting her in magazines or using her image or paying her, a whopping $50 for something that in today's society you'd be making thousands of dollars for is just all pitiful and ridiculous in my own opinion. But, these are all particular facets. Everything that I've just described to you, not only are those similarities between herself and myself, which is what make me adore her even more than I did before, but different facets of different people. What I've found in life is because she is that multifaceted, and I'll get into singing her praises in a moment, because she is so multifaceted, I find her truly superb in nature. I think anyone who has such an ability to possess so many finite qualities, whether they are good, bad, or otherwise, and be able to maintain all of that beauty within the shell of one human being and to be able to function like that for 36 years, to me, is such a testament to the person that she was. I think a lot of us who are fans, one of the things that one would warn about most was not ever being in the presence of her. And I feel like I'm in the presence of her when I watch a movie, but to just truly stand in front of her, not if you don't speak to her, but just to look at her, to watch her. She had such a way of walking, as I said, into a room and capturing your attention in such a way where you notice nothing else in the room but her. I can remember going to see My Week with Marilyn for the first time and just having goosebumps, not because it's the real live Marilyn, but it's because it was talking about her and it was an ability to share and watch all of these moments portrayed out in her life that I get so excited. I think that she was very clever. I think that from a business standpoint, she was coy, somewhat manipulative at times, in a good way, not in a bad way. She was able to get what she wanted. Sometimes I do think that the dumb blonde, per se, was a big act, in which case then she kind of could get where she needed to get what she needed, for instance, a film role or otherwise. Sadly, that didn't seem to always work with the relationship. I think she carried it, that twinkle, not in her eye, but inside of her heart. I think she was just itching to get that out of her body. I think she wanted people to know who she truly was. Do I think that she was a terrible person because she was conducting on with the president? No. Do I think it was her demise? Yes. Do I find her to be funny? Yes. And what I mean that by is when you watch her in some of her films, she tends to make fun of herself. Not everyone is very proficient at being able to do that. I don't know that I'm that great at making fun of myself, but she had an extraordinary talent for just projecting on screen. She can make a joke out of herself, make her look far more ignorant than she truly was. I think she hid a lot of her pain because she had no other choice but to. I think that she would have been beautiful as an 80-some-year-old woman. I think that some of the dresses and some of the outfits that I've seen her wear throughout the years have been ever so flattering to her. I was always so envious of the fact that she always had such a glass figure, for lack of a better term, almost like a ballerina, if you will. She just kind of floated in and floated out of people's lives and in their hearts. And it takes an icon to possess the following qualities. She seemed to resonate love to an audience, to fans, to the camera, to her family. Even when they seemed to turn on her, she was still loyal. She was loyal to her family, to her husbands for the most part. For the most part, I said, mind you. She had an eclectic personality, and I think that she would have this ability, if she were sitting here right now, to sit right across from me and just kind of light up a cigarette and kind of stare at you and be very nonchalant, to kind of push her head off to the side, because she would think to herself, oh, my Lord, why is this woman fussing over all of my work for the next 2 hours? Doesn't she have anything better to do? She wouldn't take herself too seriously. I think that she could be very flamboyant. I think that she could be very, very frustrated by the fact that it took her so much work at times to do something that the average working actor seemed to be able to do so much more easily. And that comes with any profession, of course. I think that she probably would have been better off in tennis shoes than in heels, because for some reason my perception is she never really looked 100% comfortable that way. I just don't understand why. Sadly, in case you haven't figured it out by now, since I've been going on and on about my Marilyn tribute here, for some reason, despite the fact that the Hollywood Museum did call me to confirm before the show that they would actually be appearing, they have not called in, sadly. I want to take the next couple of minutes before I finish off talking about Marilyn, because shortly we're going to be having Scott Fortner on the show. And in case those of you who don't know who he is actually the gentleman who possesses the largest Marilyn Monroe collection that there is, as far as I know, existing today. But back to the Hollywood Museum, I wanted to make a couple points here. You can find them on Facebook, and that's actually called the Hollywood Museum, so you can like their page and check out the new things that they've got going on. They're located on Twitter, and that's at the Hollywood Museum. The website is www.thehollywoodmuseum.com. And then we have YouTube, apparently. It's got some different, I don't know if it's projections as it relates to some of the events that they've done before. I didn't get a chance to check that out, so I'm not going to lie to you as far as that goes. So you may want to hop on YouTube, just type in the Hollywood Museum, see what they've got to say as far as that goes. And just to reiterate again, in case you happen to be in the California area and you're visiting, know this, that they are only open 5 days a week, and that is Wednesday through Sunday, and that is 10 o'clock to 5 p.m., and that's, of course, LA time, not my time. I do know that they offer different kinds of tours, and, of course, it's going to be far more, if you get a VIP tour, clearly it's going to be more expensive, so just keep that in mind. And you do need reservations for that, so you need to call, and that can be found on the website, again, www.thehollywoodmuseum.com. Just to run through the prices again, adults are $15, and that's a flat rate. Seniors and students are charged at a discounted rate of $12, and then, of course, children are all $5 as it relates to that. And, of course, I do know that they have special events. Like I said, I wanted to cite that they had done a red carpet event for autism, which I, of course, appreciate because my nephew happens to be autistic. I know in the past that they have actually hosted my next guest, which is Scott Fortner. They had a meet and greet with himself and another collector at the museum. I can also tell you that in the past they had actually hosted George Barris. And for those of you who have done your homework, of course, he has done his book signing there. And, of course, the book he authored is entitled Marilyn, Her Life in Her Own Words. Definitely a good read, and I would certainly suggest that to a lot of the folks that are out there, certainly. I do know that they have rotating exhibits. We're going to talk about that today. I also can tell you that the museum itself is a 501c3 not-for-profit organization, which obviously what that means is that they're always looking for volunteers. They're always seeking financial support. You can certainly turn around and become a sponsor of the museum. Let's hope that I look at all that I can convince all these folks today to be a sponsor for Students Chat Corner, we hope. But you can certainly look into those possibilities by approaching the Hollywood Museum directly, of course. Donelle would be the contact person who's usually most versed as it relates to the museum, and she was going to be our featured guest today. So you want to go ahead and look up with her. Like I said, interesting fact here, since we've got a minute or two to go back. Just let you know some of the neat little things that I found out about the museum. They have done tributes to Judy Garland, Elizabeth Taylor, Gina Harlow, Lucille Ball. They have Cary Grant's Rolls Royce there. I'm talking about old Hollywood. If there isn't one thing that I admire most in life, meaning the old Hollywood, George Clooney is like my modern-day Cary Grant, and I got to tell you, they don't make a whole lot of Cary Grants in this day and age. Obviously, they have a very elaborate Marilyn Monroe exhibit, so it would behoove you to go ahead and check that out, certainly. I'm going to be talking to Scott about his presence at the museum because I want to clarify with him as to whether it's just his collection or also fellow collector Greg Schreiner, if you've ever heard of him. So we're going to go into detail about that a little bit. So maybe at some given point in time, we can hook back up with the museum and have them come on and just kind of find out what the story is. So without further ado, it looks like we might very well have Scott calling in on the line. So let's see if we can go ahead and get him on here. Hello?
Good afternoon.
Scott?
Yes.
Hi. Oh, my gosh, I am so excited. Scott is in the house. Scott Fortner. Oh, my gosh, I have so many questions for you. I am so very excited. I can't even stand it. I just can't.
Well, great.
I can't stand it. How are you?
I am wonderful. Thanks. How are you?
Well, I'm very nervous, actually. Talking to people like you makes me extremely nervous.
Talking on the radio makes me a little bit nervous, so I guess we're equal.
Oh, my God. Honey, it's you, it's me. We got a little Marilyn Wine, and we got about hopefully 5,000 listeners listening to us right now. So I'm not gonna ask you anything. I'm hoping everything that I ask you today, most of the time you haven't been asked before. So if I did my homework well, we'll be really impressed. So let's get right into it. Before we talk about the collection itself, I wanted to talk about a statement that you had made at one time, and I tried to quote this as best as I could. You said that Marilyn was a shrewd businesswoman who was concerned about her public perception. Now, I'm just curious how you ended up deducing that statement. Where did that come from in your mind?
Well, a couple of years ago, I was lucky enough to be able to see the entire contents of two filing cabinets that were full of Marilyn Monroe's personal files and documents, and they were basically the cabinets that were written about in the Vanity Fair article a few years ago, and they were acquired by Inez Melson, which was Marilyn's business manager, and then they were passed down to Inez's nephew, and he invited me to come and take a look and go through all of these documents in the filing cabinets. And so you got an opportunity to read through Marilyn's handwritten notes and responses to things like interview questions that she was asked. And she would refer to herself in the third person, so she knew that she was a character. Marilyn was a character that she had created. And I just think that she was very savvy when it came to how the public Marilyn Monroe was presented, but also perceived by the public.
Sure. Definitely. And I would have to concur with that, actually. I thought that was a very bold and strong statement, too. I mean, 100% on the line. We were just talking about that before he came online, actually. Mm-hmm. Thoughts now. In considering the idea of when you first started the idea of becoming a collector of Marilyn Monroe items, had there been certain items of significance to you which you just knew you had to purchase?
Well, that's an interesting question. There are certain items of significance that I know that I will never be able to purchase. I guess that would be the best way to answer that question. I started out collecting books, actually, on Marilyn. That's really where my first love is when it comes to Marilyn. And eventually I started collecting auction catalogs from the major auctions, being first and foremost the 1999 Christie's auction, when the bulk of Marilyn's estate was auctioned by the Christie's company out of New York. And I started seeing items come up again for resale after that big auction, and that's when I started purchasing. But, it's, you have an idea of the things that you would love to own or like to have, but, it's really a question of whether or not they ever come up for auction again after they've been sold, and then whether or not you can actually afford those pieces, because it's becoming more and more expensive as time goes by.
Okay, and I'm guessing, because I don't mean to be ignorant, but as time goes along, of course, does that mean the value just naturally increases, of course?
That certainly seems to be the trend. There are examples of pieces that come up for auction that sell for a couple of $1,000s. For example, there were two skirts that sold at the 2005 Julian's auction, and that was when pretty much the second part of Marilyn's estate was sold. It was a much smaller auction, but items were a little bit more realistic. Prices were a little bit more realistic, relatively speaking, for that auction as compared to the 1999 auction. But there was a lot of two skirts that sold in that auction, I think for around $1,500, $2,000 that were Marilyn Monroe owned. Both of those skirts have come back up again for auction a second time, and one of those skirts I was lucky enough to purchase at auction a few years ago. And then I think just earlier this year or late last year, the other skirt sold at auction for $50,000, and it was just one skirt of Marilyn's selling for $50,000.
Wow.
So we're certainly seeing an increase. Certainly, right. It is becoming more and more expensive to collect Marilyn, and, you know, getting priced out of collectibles is certainly something that's happening more often.
Sure. I imagine so, definitely. Are you
Right.
starting to notice that the popularity is kind of warranting more auctions, more events, you know, just collectors getting together, like collector via collector, to just kind of share collections or that sort of thing? Does that ever go on?
Certainly. I mean, there's absolutely the most amazing network of collectors when it comes to Marilyn, you know, and what's great about Marilyn is there's so many different things that you can collect. You know, I have friends that collect nothing but magazines, you know, and they've got hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of magazines, vintage magazines, just focused on Marilyn. And then I know people who collect the Marilyn Monroes, and I was just listening to your interview earlier with Marilyn Monroe's Marilyn Wines. And so certainly there is definitely an overlap of collectors, and everybody loves to get together and talk about what they have and also showcase their collections, in particular on Facebook. There's a pretty amazing network on Facebook of everybody who collects. And basically what I've discovered is if you're a Marilyn fan, you pretty much collect something. And what's great is there are many things to collect.
Definitely. Now, I wanted us to take a real quick peek at Scott's life, and if you could just give us a small little segue here. Before we all knew you as a Marilyn Monroe collector, who were you? I mean, were you a regular, do you have a regular 9-to-5 job? I mean, really, I mean, I know you're synonymous with this, but who's the guy I'm talking to? I want to know.
Well, I mean, I think I'm just kind of your normal, everyday type person. I mean, I do have a real job. A lot of people will ask me, you know, is this what you do for a living? And collecting Marilyn, unfortunately, is not what I do for a living. I mean, I think it would be great to be able to do that. It's certainly a passion of mine, but it's one section of who I am as a person. I do have a regular 9-to-5 job, and you know, I just happen to be lucky enough to be in a position to be able to collect what I collect, and so I just feel very, very fortunate.
And now then he wonders why I'm so nervous right now. I should be nervous talking to you. You're far more established than little old me. I want to talk about a couple different facets of your career. The first one I'm going to do is kind of to let everybody know. I know in the past you've done appearances both in film and, of course, in television. I know that you acted as a participant in the Travel Channel's Mysteries at the Museum and in the documentary With Her, which was released in 2012. I know that you've been to the studios of Inside Edition, which is a television program that you've done before. Now, I want to ask, for you personally, out of all the media performances or appearances you've ever done, which one was the most fulfilling for you?
I would have to say that it would be, I believe it was a year or two ago, there was a gentleman in Argentina that was trying to sell a pornographic film where he just swore up and down that it was Marilyn Monroe in the film. And I was actually contacted by Reuters to be the opposing perspective on that subject. And so I went to the Reuters studio in Los Angeles, and they interviewed me, and they publicized this report, and they had this gentleman's perspective on the film and my perspective on the film. And I think what made me the most pleased is that we were able to run that piece before the auction, and the film did not sell at auction. So he was really trying to generate some income for him, and he swore up and down that it was Marilyn in the film when it actually wasn't. And it was pretty clear that it wasn't Marilyn. The timing was off. The woman had a very slight resemblance to Marilyn, but certainly nothing significant, and you could tell just by looking in most cases that it wasn't Marilyn in the film. And ultimately the film didn't sell at auction, so I was really pleased with that.
Okay, I gotcha. Now, has there been any of the possessions that you've had that have ever been used either in a film or a project that wasn't synonymous to or related to Marilyn Monroe? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I would have to answer that question with no.
Okay, I kind of figured that, but I thought, why not? You never know. Somebody might want to throw in a Marilyn Monroe thing and something unrelated. You got to ask the question. Are you ever shocked or surprised by the amount of people that approach you that want to collaborate with you or do a project with you?
No, because I think that Marilyn has such broad appeal. It's amazing. I was at the memorial service a couple of years ago, and I was so touched. There was this little 5 or 6-year-old girl that was sitting at the memorial service with her mother, and she had a Marilyn Barbie with her that she brought to the memorial service. And I thought, wow, that's just a true testament of how Marilyn is still appealing to people of even very young ages these days. And then on the other hand, my neighbor is 96 years old, and she remembers very clearly life when Marilyn was alive. She was actually born before Marilyn was born, and she's still alive. But she can recall certain events, Marilyn singing Happy Birthday to President Kennedy, and marrying Joe DiMaggio, and marrying Arthur Miller, and, of course, the subsequent divorces. And so, it's just like she's just so broad in her appeal. And I'm contacted by people with all different types of projects, whether it's business opportunities or documentaries or assisting with books or exhibits. It's just really amazing that Marilyn just is so great at bringing so many different people together.
Oh, definitely. I agree with you 100%. Now, one element I just found out about, and I've done this myself in the past, I've acted as a teacher, and I know that there's much joy and fulfillment that I've gotten associated with just educating others, and I know that you have lectured in different areas, actually, of the world, I gather. Maybe just give us a brief overview on the topics that you discuss when you're out lecturing, and have your audiences at any time been able to teach you about Marilyn, or in some ways maybe provide you leads on how to get things for your collection?
Well, I think I could answer that question in 2 separate parts. When it comes to me, my real focus on Marilyn is I consider myself to be somewhat of a historian. I really enjoy conducting research on Marilyn. With that said, there are people that I'm acquainted with and know quite well who know much more than me. They'll really focus in on very specific aspects of Marilyn's life. I guess I consider myself more of a generalist, but the main focus is really on collecting and authenticating. So a lot of times when I do talks, I will talk with people about how important it is to authenticate what they are looking at purchasing. Because there's so many opportunities out there to actually purchase something that is not authentic, is not real. And unfortunately, there's a lot of that going on right now. People are posting items for sale that were never owned by Marilyn, did not belong to Marilyn. And someone new to the scene of collecting just may take that at face value and end up getting taken. And I'm often contacted by people in my network, people from my website, just finding me, my acquaintances, close friends, letting me know, hey, so-and-so has something that's available for sale. You might be interested in purchasing that. So having a large network and then having an internet presence certainly helps when it comes to adding pieces to my collection.
Certainly. I imagine so. Okay. Speaking of your collection, let's switch gears for a little bit because I know this. I'm not sure if everyone else is aware of the fact that your collection has been at the Hollywood Museum. So therefore, I presume when it's there, the burden of maintenance and preservation falls upon their staff. I wanted to ask for you personally, what types of supplies and procedures are done to guarantee both the value and the longer term of keeping a prime condition for product?
Well, obviously you want to take care of these pieces as best you can, and in some cases they're decades and decades old. One of the items that's in my collection is Marilyn's first ever Brownie camera that she was given when she was a child, and it was given to her by her Aunt Anna. So, this is something that Marilyn probably received when she was a teenager, and having been born in 1926, we're probably looking at something that she received in the 30s. So, really the steps that I take to ensure that the collection is protected and well maintained is I never display it for very long periods of time. The max that I'll display at the Hollywood Museum is about 3 to 4 months. So, for example, you've got clothing that's on display on dress forms or mannequins. There's a bit of wear and tear that you need to be aware of, and the longer that the pieces are displayed, the more wear and tear you've got, and that also comes with either putting the clothing on the mannequin, taking it off the mannequin, just that type of thing. For example, one of the dresses that I have, I have one of Marilyn's black cocktail dresses. It's actually weighted on the bottom, so the entire circumference of the hem has weights around it, and so really that weight is pulling down on the threads and on the seams of the gown the entire time that it's displayed. So when it's not displayed, everything is just packed away in acid-free tissue and acid-free boxes in a very safe and secure, climate-controlled location with high security.
Definitely, of course. I was just going to ask you that, and I know this might sound like a silly question. Has anyone ever attempted to steal anything from the collection, or have you had any incidents of that sort?
Well, fortunately, knock on wood, I've never had a situation where there has been an actual theft or even an attempt at theft. When I'm doing any type of an exhibit, security is always very, very important to me, so that's certainly one of the top considerations. At the Hollywood Museum right now, I'm very, very comfortable with their level of security that they have. They have multiple security systems. They have surveillance cameras. And the exhibit location in the museum itself is something that is not easily accessible from the outer perimeter of the museum. You've really got to go through several doors in order to even get to the exhibit, and then everything within the exhibit is under locked glass. So I was still very comfortable when I'm exhibiting at the Hollywood Museum. Other situations, I just need to make sure that we've got security in place.
Understandable. Okay, since we're on the, obviously talking about the collection, I've got obviously more questions for you. Like, first of all, just let our audience members know when you actually began purchasing your collection, and maybe tell us some of the best places that you've actually found items.
Okay. So, again, I've collected books pretty much my entire life. I mean, the very first book I ever got was a book that I still have, and that's when I was in either grade school or junior high. It's been a very long time. I didn't start collecting Marilyn Monroe owned items until about 2001, and you may have heard the old statement that you never get just one tattoo. Once you get one, you just keep getting more and more tattoos. You keep adding to your body art. That's a little bit how it is with collecting, I think. I mean, it's just another form of collecting. But, my first Marilyn piece, I got it. I was overwhelmed, couldn't believe it. And then I thought, well, okay, let me see what else I can get. And now it's been going on for so long. I have over 150 pieces in my collection of Marilyn Monroe owned items. I primarily acquire pieces at auction. And again, it's becoming more and more difficult because there's so much interest in Marilyn right now, especially in the European and Asian collecting markets. A lot of the pieces that are coming up for auction now are actually going out of the country. I'm actually really lucky that I'm also, with my internet presence, I get a lot of contact from private sellers. And so someone will contact me and say, well, I purchased this at the 99 auction or this at the 2005 auction. I'm interested in selling it. And a lot of times that's how I pick up some of my pieces is I just do it through private sale.
Okay, gotcha.
I've also been lucky enough that stuff has been given to me in some cases. I have a 1942 Chieftain, which is the yearbook from University High, which was Marilyn's final year when she was right after she dropped out of school to get married after her sophomore year. And Ruby, which was one of Marilyn's classmates and actually knew Marilyn when she was they were in classes together, she contacted me and said, well, I've got my yearbook and I'm downsizing and I'm wondering if you might be interested in it, and I will send it to you if you would like to add it to your collection. And I said I'd be happy to give it a permanent home. So she sent it to me.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
I need to know your friends because nobody does that to me. Thank you.
I need more friends like Ruby, I think.
Yeah, there you go. Definitely. Now, obviously, of course, your collection is hugely extensive. So maybe if you could just tell us, just pick out a couple of your particular favorites, and then tell us as it relates to a collection, because we're envisioning this huge collection. So is it always together in one piece? Is it separated out? How does that work? If you could tell us both of those things.
Well, right now, I'll answer your second question first. Right now, the collection is separated just a little bit. The majority of the collection is at the Hollywood Museum on display, and it will be there until the first week of September. And then I've got one piece that's on exhibit right now at Prague Castle in Czechoslovakia. They've got a big Marilyn exhibit there that was the next stop after the Ferragamo exhibit from Florence. It moved to Prague Castle in Czechoslovakia. So I do have one piece that's over in Europe right now on display with another Marilyn exhibit. As far as my favorite pieces, I've got a couple of pieces I think that are really, really meaningful. Either they were personal to Marilyn or they're somehow substantial as they relate to Marilyn. And I think, in regards to the latter, I've got toward the end of her life, Marilyn became very, very interested in Pucci, and she wore a lot of Pucci clothing. And so a couple of years ago at auction, I was lucky enough to be able to acquire a lime green, long-sleeved Pucci blouse. And it's just a very simple sweater made out of silk. And what's amazing about this blouse really is two different things. Number one, when it comes to the Happy Birthday, Mr. President performance, a lot of people think that Marilyn was drunk or she was nervous and she didn't actually intend to sing the song that way. But a day or two before her performance at Madison Square Garden, she actually rehearsed the song. And that's exactly the way that she rehearsed it. So the way that she performed it in front of President Kennedy is actually the way that she had rehearsed it. And at the rehearsal, she was wearing this green Pucci blouse. And there's video footage or film footage of Marilyn walking out of her New York apartment wearing this green Pucci blouse as she's either returning from or headed to Madison Square Garden for the rehearsal. The other significant piece about the blouse is the weekend before Marilyn died, she was at the Calneva Lodge, and she's wearing this green Pucci blouse. And the last ever photos of Marilyn alive were taken that weekend. And so this is the blouse she was wearing in the last ever pictures of her taken alive.
Amazing.
So, yeah. Inside the blouse, there is a dry cleaning tag that says Monroe on it. So it was getting ready to be sent off to the dry cleaners when she passed away. I already talked about the Brownie camera that I was lucky enough to add to the collection, and I think that's really significant because her Aunt Anna was one of her favorite people in her life as she was growing up. She refers to her fondly, and I also have. This is one of my favorite stories to tell. Several years ago, I took the red eye from California to Christie's in New York to participate in an auction the following day, and there was a specific lot of pieces that I absolutely was intent on getting, and there were several fur pieces. So there was a mink collar, and then there was another smaller fur collar, and then there were these two white fox pieces that were actually cuffs that were affixed to a coat. And then there was this white muff, and I thought, that's probably just an ancillary piece. I'm not sure Marilyn ever even wore this white muff. It may be just an accessory that someone had given to her. So I was lucky enough to win this lot of furs at auction. And so I came back that same day. It was literally, in 24 hours out to New York City, attend the auction, and back. And a couple of weeks after the auction, I was reading, I believe, Norma Jean by Fred Lawrence Giles, and I was reading about Marilyn preparing for the world premiere of How to Marry a Millionaire. And there was a passage in there that everything that Marilyn was wearing belonged to the studio, the dress, the earrings, except for the furs that she was going to be wearing to the premiere of the movie. And the furs happened to be a white fox stole and a white fox muff. And I thought, could that be the white fox muff that I just got at auction? So I went up to my computer, I did a little bit of research, I found photos of Marilyn at the 1953 premiere of How to Marry a Millionaire, and sure enough, there she was wearing the white fox muff. And the story went on to say that the muff and the stole were actually the very first furs that Marilyn ever purchased with her own money.
Goodness gracious, how amazing. I'm getting goosebumps right now. Holy cow.
Right. So that's one of my favorite pieces just because of the story behind it and how it was actually turned out to be one of the very first furs that Marilyn ever owned.
Oh, my gosh. Look at that.
Yeah.
Goodness. Okay. Now I've got two more questions for you because, oh, my God, this time goes so fast. I swear
It
I
does.
should have had you on for like an hour and a half. I could talk to you like all day long. I have to tell you, folks, that Scott is probably one of the nicest, most laid-back gentlemen I have ever met. Well, I haven't formally met yet, but just an utter joy and a book of knowledge, and I'm just so flattered to have you. I just can't even. I'm even more nervous about Jimmy James, so I'm like, oh, God, you two are freaking me out right now a little bit. One thing I want to cover about, and again, I don't think people know this necessarily, I in the past have hosted another couple of guests who have obviously been to the Oscars, and luckily you fit within those ranks as well, because in 2011, the Academy had requested your attendance, and I know you presented behind-the-scenes footage of the movie Bus Stop. Mm-hmm. Now, a couple questions for that. Because we don't understand the process of how it works Oscar-wise now, is this just them randomly approaching you, or they approach how many different collectors and you get chosen? And then does the Academy do this every year where they incorporate, lost footage, things of that nature? Just tell us a little bit about that whole process.
Well, I have to tell you, and to be totally honest, it's a little bit different than well, let me just say this. I was lucky enough to have been contacted by Joshua Green, who I'm close with, and who is Milton Green's son. And, of course, Milton Green was Marilyn's business partner in the 1955 launch of Marilyn Monroe Productions. And the footage that was shown was actually shot by Milton Green, and it's from the Milton Green archives. And so Joshua had made arrangements one way or another to display the footage at the Academy, and it's a series of presentations that the Academy does, and it's called Hollywood Home Movies. And so Joshua invited me to come and participate in this showing with him. And then, unfortunately, he was actually unable to attend, so I was able to step in his place. And so I was lucky enough to be able to present this footage at the Linwood Dunn Theater in Los Angeles, which is an Oscar facility, an Oscar theater, and it was to a packed house, and it was Marilyn Monroe footage, but it was also several other pieces of behind-the-scenes footage from other celebrities, and it was a very fun event of just different people getting up and talking about different scenes and films that had been shot of celebrities behind the scenes on the set for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and it was an amazing experience, and boy, I was thrilled and honored to be able to do it. And actually thrilled to have been asked by Joshua to participate.
Oh, definitely so. Certainly. Goodness.
Yeah.
Now, before I ask you the last question, I just wanted to, if you want to listen to all these things real quick, and then just let me know if I've forgotten anything. I can tell you, Facebook, obviously you're on Facebook as your personal self, and of course the Marilyn Monroe Collection is also on Facebook, and they have a page. There's a Twitter handle, which is @MMCollection. And then, of course, you have, I'm assuming, still the blog spot on the Marilyn Monroe Collection site. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and that would be www.themarilynmonroecollection.blogspot.com. Is there any other way, social media-wise, Scott, to get a hold of you?
Well, there's always my website, too, which is just themarilynmonroecollection.com.
Right.
And email is info@themarilynmonroecollection.com.
Wonderful. Now, I've saved the best for last because, of course, ironically, and you and I both know I've been trying to plan this show for a while now,
yes.
We all aligned together, ironically, just a few days, of course, after the anniversary of Marilyn's death, which is August 5th, which I didn't do on purpose. It just kind of panned out that way. I know that you were privy to attending the 50th anniversary memorial, which is, of course, at Westwood Cemetery. For those that haven't been there, including myself, which I'd like to get there, spend maybe the next couple minutes just telling us what that experience was like being there.
Well, there's only one place on earth where you can actually go and be close to Marilyn Monroe, and that's at her crypt at Westwood Memorial Park. Many fans have an affinity toward her house on Helena Drive. I think it's just really amazing when you actually are at Westwood Memorial Park and you can literally be standing right there, and just realize that, the body that was Marilyn Monroe is literally on the other side of this wall. And, you can stand back and just really watch people have an amazing emotional reaction when they're there. Oftentimes, it's really hard to believe that you are actually standing right there. I'm lucky enough to actually be a leading member of the Marilyn Remembered Fan Club, which is the entity responsible for doing the Marilyn Monroe Memorial Service every year at Westwood Memorial Park. So Greg Schreiner is our president, and he actually is a co-exhibitor at the Hollywood Museum. So he and I, both of our collections are on exhibit right now at the museum. But together, he and I, with a committee of individuals for the 50th anniversary memorial, planned it, did fundraising, did all of the organization for it, and the date of August 5th last year was an amazing, incredible experience. We had people from all over the world come to this memorial service. The chapel was overflowing. We had a tent. We had a canopy outside with chairs and a big screen TV, and we were streaming the broadcast from inside, outside, and the audio was outside. And we had, for the first time ever, we had Amy Green was able to come and speak at the memorial service. Of course, she's the wife of Milton Green, and Marilyn lived with Milton and Amy for a period of time in the mid-50s. And it was an incredible experience just to be able to come and not only meet your fellow Marilyn Monroe connections, in many cases met people for the very first time, although have communicating with them regularly online or on Facebook or whatnot. And it was a whole week of activities, actually. So Marilyn Remembered, it was the fan club that did the memorial service plus a couple of other events. And then another fan club, Immortal Marilyn, also hosted several events that week. And so we had a whole calendar of events, and every single day there were several events going on, and you could just really pick and choose on what you wanted to attend, and it was all Marilyn Monroe themed. It was like a great big Marilyn Monroe convention right there in Hollywood. Yeah, so I encourage anybody to try to attend it. So you just can visit MarilynRemembered.org to find out information on the memorial service each year.
Oh, definitely. My goodness gracious. Well, this much I can tell you, my friend, first and foremost, that I'm so glad that we are starting to become friends. I can't even tell you how lucky and fortunate that I feel that we've stumbled across each other's paths. We've spoken off the radio. We've spoken on the radio. And I have to say that I'm in awe of your talent. I'm in awe of the way that you represent her, the way that you keep her memory living. I think you're just an exceptional person. I come to California in the near future. I hope that you'll be able to make some time to see me.
Well, I would certainly try to make that happen. I appreciate your kind words.
Oh, definitely so. I guess I always feel like you're getting dragged away in 50 different directions all of the time. So it's kind of like I probably have zero chance in getting all of your time, let alone even getting the sneak peek at the collection. I'm like, I still want to see this collection, even if it's a little tiny bit. Even if I have to go to the museum, I'll definitely do it. I'm just like, yeah, I really want to see it.
Well, if I'm in L.A. when you're in L.A., I will certainly give you a private guided tour of the exhibit.
Oh, my gosh, you are so absolutely wonderful. Any good words of advice about Jimmy James?
Well, I think what's amazing about Jimmy James is not only was he one of the most incredible Marilyn Monroe impersonators that the world has ever seen, he's also very talented in other areas too, especially when it comes to impersonations. So, Jimmy was doing Marilyn a long time before some other people have been doing Marilyn, and he's got some really incredible experiences. He's been on a lot of talk shows, Phil Donahue, and he's very established. And if any of your listeners are unfamiliar with Jimmy, I would encourage them really to just go to the internet and look up Jimmy James and click on pictures, and they will instantly see this striking resemblance that he has to Marilyn, and that will definitely help people understand why he was so successful as an impersonator.
Oh, definitely. It was just absolutely amazing. I got to say, I'm just beyond smitten with his talent, and I'm so excited he's the last one. So definitely, I will be in touch after the show because there's a few things we didn't cover, and I'll post everything up on Facebook so everybody can check it out. I'll let you go, my friend. Thank you so much for the time you gave me. All right, dear. Take care.
Bye-bye. You too.
Bye-bye. All right, folks. That was Scott Fortner. Wasn't he absolutely lovely? So now we're going to go ahead and try to get Jimmy James on the line. I am so nervous I can't even stand it, so don't anybody tell him. Shh. Very quiet. Hello?
Hello?
Jimmy James?
Yeah?
Hi.
Hi, is this Cindy?
This is Cindy. I have to tell you that I can't breathe right now. I am so nervous, I can't even stand it.
Why would
Jimmy
you be
James is on my show.
Oh
my God, honey. I am so nervous. I'm in Wisconsin. I live in Wisconsin, so we're actually broadcasting all over the place, like in all 50 states, but I live in Wisconsin.
Oh, hi. Hi, Wisconsin. I've never been there.
Oh, my God. Well, see, now we have to give her a reason to come here. I'm telling you right now. I am telling you. I just got to, before you talk, let me just read to you what I wrote, because you guys totally can see I'm screwing up, right? I've been doing so good for 90 minutes, and then you come on, right? I'm like, la, la, la. Okay, before we begin with the amazing Jimmy James, let me just say a few observations that I've made. I've watched a bunch of your performances, and what emulated most, in my opinion, about you is two different things, and this is just what I've observed. You have a diversity in pitch and character, and secondly, of course, it goes without saying, this very haunting likeness to Marilyn herself. And further, I envision that you're an individual who is blunt, aggressive, passionate about your endeavors. And you know what else? I've been listening. I know that you were born in San Antonio. So is that just the twinge of an accent that I hear in your voice?
Do you hear one? I try to get rid of it.
You totally do. I can hear it in your interviews every time. I'm like, it's in there, really little. I can tell. It's just, you're not hiding it well. But that's very dull. It works for you. It totally does.
Yeah.
Oh, it does.
I tried to get rid of it as much as I could.
Okay. That's kind of what I thought, but I'm like, you know what? It suits you, though. It really does, because when you sing and when you perform, you can't tell. But, like, when you're on a radio show or, like, on an interview, totally. You give yourself totally away. Okay, now I have to compose myself because I have to ask you actual questions now. Oh, my God, I'm going to have a heat flash here in a minute. This is so funny. It's almost like talking to Marilyn but not Marilyn kind of thing. It's like a.
Now, how did you come up with that? My character analysis of me. It was actually pretty good, I have to say.
Thank you. Well, I've been doing radio for 2 years, and I've been an author a long time. And, you know, you get a sense of people when you watch about them enough, read about them, you go to people that know them and say, you know, tell me about this person. So a lot of it was really just watching interviews. How you act on Joan Rivers is not how you were on Phil Donahue, and it wasn't how you were on other arenas, like when you perform. Mm-hmm. And I just watched this. I just got a good sense of your character. And then I think you were filming something where you were kind of being a sarcastic little person. And I was like, ooh, she's got some sass to her. I'm like, don't cross that Jimmy James, because she will step on you. So I'm like, I better not piss you off or we're in big trouble on this interview.
Well, my sarcasm is actually a form of my comedy, I think.
Really? Really?
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah,
well, look at that.
Sarcasm is just being funny, trying to be funny. But when they take the sarcasm seriously, that's when they start to not like me. I'm like, I'm just kidding.
Oh, my gosh, look at this. Okay, now I have some very serious questions about when you first started out, because we all kind of want to know some of those little details that kind of lead up to the big picture. Like, two first questions I had. Approximately what age had you discovered that entertainment was something you wanted to get into? And then second of all, was there maybe one poignant on-screen role model that you identified most with?
First of all, do we have an hour? Are we talking for an hour?
If you want to talk for an hour, honey, I'll talk to you for 2 hours if you want to. I'm like so fixated on you right now, I can't stand it. You can go an hour if you want. That's fine.
No, I just want to know what's my time limit.
You're my last guest, so basically, I kept you for last for a reason because I wanted to talk to you. I wanted to talk to everybody.
Okay.
But I adore you. Go ahead, say whatever you want.
I remember distinctly when I wanted to be an entertainer, because up until it was at the age of 11, I was in my garage in San Antonio, and we had a little chalkboard because I always thought I was going to be a teacher for some reason. I don't know. I just thought I was going to be a teacher. So I would play on the chalkboard and pretend I was teaching class or something. And then some kind of a strange feeling came over me. I was 11 years old. I remember I'm 11 right now, and I'm going to always remember that this is now a trajectory that has come upon me. And at 11 it said, I'm going to be an entertainer for some reason. And at the age 11, growing up in Texas with a family that has nothing to do with show business, I was quite a strange premonition. And I think that's what it was. It's like a premonition that I couldn't help. There's certain things in your life that you just can't help. And it's funny that it happened when I was 11 because I'm a Gemini. My birthday is May 22nd. And it's funny, and then Marilyn turned out to be a Gemini. My initials are JJ. I mean, my real name is Jimmy Johnson, but I changed it to Jimmy James just for stage. My stage name is Jimmy James. And at that time, I didn't know who Marilyn was. I had no idea. I mean, I kind of grew up. I don't want to talk about how old I am, but I grew up with Diana Ross and the Supremes and Sonny and Cher. Janis Joplin was a big idol of mine, and Tina Turner at the time. Mm-hmm. I grew up with kind of a different thing, and then in the 80s, I really got into Boy George and Annie Lennox and Madonna. That's more my era, and Marilyn was before my era, so I didn't really know who Marilyn was, and certainly not at 11. And it was 11 when I decided what I wanted. I didn't decide, it just came over me that said to me, that little chalk I had in my hand and I was trying to be a teacher, suddenly that little chalk meant nothing to me. And I never wrote on the chalkboard again.
Really?
It was weird. Yeah. I never cared to write on the chalkboard on my little, pretending like I was teaching class. I completely dropped it. And I just thought I'm going to be an entertainer.
Wow. Look at that. Now, did you idolize one in particular, or maybe one on-screen character that just moved you in such a way that you thought, I want to be just like that person?
Oh, yeah. I thought I wanted to be Cher.
Oh, excellent. We're going to get along fabulously. She just picked my idol. Yes. Who doesn't love Cher? Come on.
It seemed like the only male I could relate to was Liberace. And if you look at me on YouTube on those talk shows, whenever you see me as a boy, I'm kind of like homaging Liberace. I'll have like a sequin boy clothes on,
Right.
So it's like
cute.
I vacillate between. Marilyn came about. Well, go ahead and ask your questions. I don't know. I don't want to jump the gun.
Okay, that's fine. You're the boss here, but I'll continue. Boy, you're less intimidating than I thought. Yay. This is good. It's true. You have no idea how nervous I've been to talk to you. It's almost like having the icon, but not really the icon. You dress like her, you look like her, you sound like her, but you're not her. But I can pretend for like an hour, right? Because maybe she'd be like this. Hell, I don't know. Okay. Yeah, more wine. Gillette's fault. He gave me that Marilyn wine. I've been drinking it through the show. Now I'm getting a little goofy. That's okay. I want to talk about, because a lot of people probably don't know this that are listening. You chose, of course, a career in makeup artistry, which to me I think is very intriguing. So I have some questions to that. First off, which elements of being in makeup artistry fascinated you to where you thought, yeah, this is something I want to pursue?
I remember I saw a picture of Gregory Peck on the cover of like our local the newspaper version of TV Guide, I think, or something. I saw a picture of Gregory Peck as Abraham Lincoln. And he looked so different in his Abraham Lincoln makeup than what he really looked like as a man, as himself. And something spoke to me because I always had a baby face, and I always was a boy with a girl face, and I was always kind of made fun of for that, and I thought, well, makeup will be able to transform me into anything I ever want to be. So makeup intrigued me. Now, I didn't know if I would be playing a woman or a man. I just didn't know. I just knew makeup had the power to transform. That's all I knew, and that's what intrigued me about makeup. And also, as I got older, I kind of felt like, you know what, maybe I'm never going to be an entertainer, so why don't I just do makeup, because it'll be the closest I can get to show business. Because, again, I was still in San Antonio. Nobody in San Antonio goes to get in show business. Nobody. I mean, I guess I could think of Carol Burnett and Joan Crawford maybe, but... it's funny. It's funny now. San Antonio has like 2 or 3 major music stores there. They have. I think they have Sam Ash Music Store and a bunch of other but that didn't exist back then in the 80s. San Antonio was just really a very sleepy town, a small town sort of, you know.
Really? Oh, goodness gracious.
Yeah. And then I studied radio, television, and film in college. Again, not thinking I would ever be on it. I just thought, I'll just accept a life where I can be behind the scenes and do television production, maybe be a makeup artist, maybe be in advertising some way. I kind of started to feel like, I don't know, as I grew up, and I had always been a chubby boy. I lost weight, and I just started in prettier.
Oh my goodness gracious!
And there was I didn't fit in anywhere. I was essentially a misfit in my own, and everyone, when I'd go into stores, everyone would think I was a girl. Can I help you, young lady? And now I get ma'am. Now I'm a ma'am, but I used to be, can I help you, young lady?
Listen to this. Now, when you did the makeup part of your life, as far as when you were doing that, was that something where you thought in your head, you know what, I'm just going to do this temporarily until my big break comes, I'm going to get discovered by somebody, or were you like, no, this is what life's going to be all about for me?
It's kind of like I kept doing it, not really knowing where it was going to lead to. And I always tell people, it's kind of like, do you remember Close Encounters of a Third Kind? Remember how he kept trying to mold the mashed potatoes to look like the place where he was supposed to get to? Like,
yes.
And he kept, and everything he did, he just kept, and he couldn't understand why. As I went along, I took dance class, movement. I took drama classes because I just tried it, in high school. I took drama class, and I became the head makeup man in drama school. I was really good at painting. I could make young kids look old.
Okay.
That was like a specialty. It wasn't even glamour makeup. It was just theatrical makeup is what I knew the best, And but everything along the way was preparing me, but I didn't know it. I had a girl phase that, of course, people thought I was cute and pretty, but a lot of people would make fun of me because I had a girl's face, and I just didn't know where I fit in. I remember in college walking down the hallway, and I had blue jeans, cowboy boots, and a sweatshirt turned inside out, and I'd walk down the hall, and everyone just would freeze. And I was like, oh, my God, it's because the way I look. And I had short boy hair, and I was trying to be like a boy, I couldn't help it. My face was like, I had very pretty skin, I guess genetics from my mother who had beautiful skin. I had very pretty skin. And, again, things were leading up to Marilyn, but I didn't know it. Things just kept. I took dance class, I took drama classes, I took radio, TV, and film, kind of learning that. And I took makeup, learned makeup really well. All these things were preparing me, but I didn't know it. And then it was around 1980. It was in the early 80s. I can't remember, like
83,
81 or 80. 83, I think, yeah. But a little bit before that, when I came across that book, Life Goes to the Movies, that book, I was in Dalton's bookstore at North Star Mall in San Antonio. And I guess when there was Dalton bookstores, I don't even know if they're around anymore. And
I don't know either.
I opened the book. Yeah, I opened the book, Life Goes to the Movies, and there's a beautiful Philippe Halsman picture of her in the off-the-shoulder white dress. It's off the shoulder. She's looking into the camera. Well, at that point, I had lost a lot of weight, and I was pretty much slim by then. And I remember staring at my face in the mirror because I always had such a chubby face. And then when I lost all this weight, I actually had a jawline and a facial structure. And I looked at the picture of Marilyn, and I was like, oh, my God, that's kind of like that's kind of the structure of my face.
Mm-hmm.
And mind you, I didn't know who she was, except for the fact that everyone kept talking about her. So I'm like, now, there's no there's no theater in San Antonio at that point, other than maybe a dinner theater where big stars would come. I remember meeting Phyllis Diller at the dinner theater, and other kind of celebrities would come there and perform dinner theater or whatever. But nowhere for anyone to perform, like, except there was like, what do you call it, community theater. And you know what community theater means? You put in a lot of hard work and you don't get a dime.
Right. But it was worth the effort. Ding. Yes.
It was. It was worth the effort, but at the time I remember getting kind of bitter going, God, they didn't even, we had full houses for Oklahoma, I think the show was in the chorus. It was full houses and everything. People paid tickets, and they never even gave us like $10 for gas. You know, it would have been nice to give everyone something. But my business head was starting to be like, okay, I don't like the way this looks. What can I do? Because I liked doing it. I liked performing, but what can I do? What can I do? And the only performers that were getting paid any money were in the gay bars, the drag queens that would come in from out of town and travel. And, the special queens were like getting $200 a show. And, oh, my God, that was a lot of money in the mid-'80s, you know. Oh, my God, they get paid to lip sync to a record, but me singing live and working my ass off in the theater was not getting even $10 for gas money. Which, and you got to remember, I was like still in school, so $10 for gas would have been great, you know. I was like, something's wrong with this picture. I got to figure something out. So I remember there was a Marilyn Monroe film festival that I went to, because there were, like, for a whole week they were showing Marilyn films. And I went to go see the films, and I was like, wow, this is incredible. First of all, the first movie I saw of hers was 7 Year Itch. And I was taken back by how soft and round she was not in person, on the screen she was soft and round compared to the chiseled pictures I was seeing in the still photographs. There were more chisels in the photographs than to see her actually moving on the screen. She was more rounded and, you know, just voluptuous and just and I was like, who is this person? So I started reading about her, and of course, anyone who reads about Marilyn gets sucked in. Anybody. I mean, you just start reading about her, and it just becomes so interesting. So then I started to think, okay, those drag queens lip sync, and they make some pretty good money to do a couple of numbers. And I knew about Jim Bailey, right? Jim Bailey had been famous for his great recreation of Judy Garland on television. And so I kind of thought, okay, I know I don't want to lip sync. I want to sing live. But I was terrified. I was terrified. I mean, I was thinking, who the hell do I think I am to think that I could transform myself into Marilyn Monroe? And on my Facebook, Jimmy James Hollywood, I think, I don't know how you find it, but I put a lot of early pictures of me where you can see the makeup is rough. It's like I'm trying to find my way with the makeup and kind of realizing less is more. But when you do less, how do you do less and not look like yourself? It's very strange. It's a very weird thing. And I put in a lot of work and study. And I put a lot of hard work and study when there was no YouTube. There was nothing I could grab, like, to look at. Nowadays, you have so much YouTube. It's I'm a little put off when people ask me if I'll help them do the makeup or help them to do Marilyn. I'm like, put in the hard work. Put in the hard work. Because if you're not willing to put in the hard work, then you really don't care about it.
I agree. You have to have a love for that. I think that that's one of the reasons you're so good at what you do, because when you are on screen, whether it's YouTube or otherwise, and I don't know if you folks had a chance to actually watch Jimmy at all, I don't think anyone is very, very good at what they do, or they're not proficient at it and they don't love it, and it doesn't resonate unless you carry a passion for it. And that all shows in what I've seen with you. It's the way you are so meticulous, from the hair to the dress to the makeup to how you stand, how you poise yourself, how you speak. God, it's like me having a crush. But I don't think you want me to have a crush on you. So.
That's okay.
Because that wouldn't work, but you know.
But part of my talent is that I am meticulous. And I think that's part of my talent. And meticulous in the way that, you know, a great actor or actress is meticulous about every detail. I heard that Meryl Streep still has the same makeup guy, hair and makeup guy that she's had for 25 years because he's really good. And I think the two of them work as a team in pulling off the certain looks that she needs, especially like the recent one for Margaret Thatcher that she pulled off and things like that. I think that I'm very lucky and I'm very proud. I'm very proud in that when I was doing Marilyn, I was doing it from an actor's point of view, not just that I wanted to be a lookalike. Because to just be a lookalike to me, and nothing against lookalikes, but to me to be a lookalike would have been very empty for me and shallow.
Okay.
Very shallow.
Sure.
And so when you look back on the YouTube thing, and of which, by the way, I have tons and tons more that I haven't uploaded. It's just going to take time, effort, and money. Yeah, time, effort, and money. And those are three things that are like, just like when you're on to other projects now, like I am, it's hard to dive into all that. It's really hard, but I have so much more footage that I want to give to the fans. I want to give it to the fans. It's just going to take some time, and I am planning to do My Life as Marilyn documentary, so that's another issue. We'll probably start an Indiegogo campaign to raise money for that, but I don't want to raise money until I find the right filmmaker. Once I find the right filmmaker, then I want to have a Kickstarter, Indiegogo or something to raise the funds to amass and put together all this footage. So I've got tons of footage.
Wow. Well, I say we have a pajama party at Jimmy James' house. That's what we do. We all have a pajama party. We come over, put the footage together. Oh, my God, that would be so fun. Wow. Listen to me. I'm totally all over that.
I wanted to say something about in the recreating of Marilyn. One of my favorite things that Oprah Winfrey ever said, you know how the expression was the devil is in the details? This is a better expression. The love is in the details. For whatever you do, the love is in the details. And I'm very proud of the details, you know, because you can look at me as Marilyn. I'm not a woman. I'm a boy. And so I had to, work a lot of trickery to pull myself together to give the illusion of Marilyn.
Okay. I don't think you did an illusion. I think you were Marilyn. I don't think you realized it. Although I'm sure people have got to have told you this a million times over. I'm telling you, people, watch her. It freaks me out. It gives me goosebumps. I'm like, oh my God, because you have the sound and the magnetism, and it's just people just look at. I swear to God, men, I am certain, must have been attracted to you left, right, and sideways, just looking at you. Well, either way, obviously, but I mean, just
it's funny.
In that persona.
It's funny because the way I designed my shows, Marilyn was the first 20 minutes of the show. That was the first part of the show. Then I would have a singer sing a couple of songs in between after Marilyn, and then I would come out androgynous and do the rest of the show where I did the voices of Eartha Kitt, Billie Holiday, and Judy Garland, and Patsy Cline, and Betty Davis. And so they got 2 shows. They got Marilyn, and then they got the Voices show. And by the end of the show, I get a standing ovation because they were like, we didn't know we were going to get all of this, you know. And I know, it was really, because I gave them even more than Marilyn, if you can believe that, because I was afraid of becoming just a one-trick pony. You know, I didn't want to just be, you know, and I know Marilyn was the drawing card, and that was the thing that pulled them in, but then they were, I think, very pleasantly surprised when they got a lot more Barbra Streisand, all live vocals. I just did it as an impressionist, doing live vocals.
Oh, definitely.
And
yes.
And I put my acting into that because I wasn't so much looking like them as I was emoting and singing live as those people.
Right.
But I don't know. What were you going to say, Kim?
Okay, now I have another question for you. Before we go back to you as being all of the magnificent things you are, because we haven't even gone into everything yet because I have more questions. Whew, I got to calm down a little bit. Just give me a heat flash here.
And don't let me ramble. Just rein me in.
Okay, I'll cut you off at will. Did you hear that, folks? If she or, you know, she's like, cut me off, I'm cutting her off. Doesn't matter. Just shut up, Jenny. I'm moving on to the next thing. No, I would never do that. That's a bitchy thing to do, and I'm not a bitch. We're a lot less formal than Oprah and Joan Rivers, just so you know. As you can see, you can swear on here and talk about all sorts of things. I like to talk about the other side of the fence, meaning that obviously people are synonymous with you as it relates to all the personalities that you have impersonated or your stage presence. Let's talk about Jimmy Jane's moment, sans the makeup and the clothing. Tell us a little bit about the real Jimmy James. If we were in California right now and we saw you on the street or got to hang with you, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you like to do, and moreover, the dollar question, is Jimmy James available? Because I'm sure people want to know.
You know, I've started doing, I'm available. Yeah, I'm very accessible, actually, a little too accessible, but...
Not really, because guess what? She's on Facebook. I can't be her friend. She has too many. So she's lying. I can't accept her because she can't be my friend. But okay.
I know. Well,
sucks.
Facebook is nothing but a Nazi corporation. I mean, to tell you can only have 5,000 friends is stupid.
Yes, it is.
Anyway,
I agree.
But and I'm on Twitter, Jimmy James LA.
Yeah.
Twitter,
yeah.
But
you, the real live you. What's the real live you? Sans the performer, just average ordinary Jimmy James.
I talked to my agent and my manager, and we just planned all these gigs that I listed on my Jimmy James News is my fan page, so that's open for everybody. Jimmy James News, and I post my schedule on there and stuff. My website is so behind. God, if anybody wants to be my webmaster, so I
will.
Just ignore.
I'm already on it. I looked at it and I was like, oh, holy hell.
Oh, my website is just a mess. It's so behind. I ignore that it even exists.
Oh, no, don't do that. Social media is the thing. Honestly, I will tell you, most celebrities that come on my show will say having a social media presence is vital. It really is vital. People want to know what you're doing, where you are, that kind of stuff. You know that.
I know, but JimmyJames.com is like behind. I have to find a webmaster.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
So
now, if
I'll
you were
put that out there.
Okay. And what are the things, do you enjoy, let's say, for instance, on your downtime, let's say you're going out for a night. Are you going to be that same person who's going to go watch fellow impersonators? Are you going to go see other stage performers? What's your downtime like? What are you doing?
Oh, my downtime. Do you want to know the truth? Oh, my God.
No, lie to me. Yes, I want you to tell me the truth.
Oh, I'm going to tell you the truth. Oh, my God. I used to be afraid to go to the movies by myself because I thought, oh, God. But there's a place here in West Hollywood that kind of shows documentaries and special films. And I love to go by myself. Occasionally, I've taken a friend with me on occasion, but I love to go there by myself, usually sometimes in the afternoon. I just get away from the computer and everything. I love to watch films. I love films. I don't really want to be in the film business, but I love film. I just love watching, especially documentaries. I think is my favorite thing. I think.
Okay.
And you'd be hearing me talk about, oh, God, I got to be sure I go out walking today. Oh, I feel bloated. I feel fat. I need to lose weight.
Oh my God. Really?
And so I'm always like, I'm walking right now, and I have to work myself back up to jogging. I used to jog all the time, but now I just walk. I feel so fat.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
It's
really?
harder than ever to lose weight. When I was a fat boy my whole life, and doing Marilyn was a lot of discipline. A lot.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
If you look closely in the Marilyn videos on YouTube, you can kind of see weight fluctuations.
Definitely. And that's not cool whatsoever. I have noticed. Oh, I imagine so.
No.
Actually.
No, and I don't take I don't take it personally either. It's just that, to tell you the truth, when I retired from doing Marilyn in '97, I retired so that I could maintain the integrity and the spirit and the enthusiasm, the love and the joy and everything I had for it. I could leave that intact, and I could move on with the rest of my life. I wanted to evolve, get into music, and I recorded a worldwide hit called Fashionista that is still getting played around the world, and it's on my album Jamestown, and it's on iTunes. I wrote a whole album of music, of dance music, which I love. And I still love dance music, and I'm looking for more producers to work with. Now that I live in L.A., I haven't been able to find a producer, but I'm still looking. And I love music. I love dance music in particular. I like electronica dance music with lyrics, not just beats and noises. I like electronica with lyrics and vocals. And,
gotcha.
I really believe that music with a beat can transform people and uplift them. There's certain songs that are just cool. They raise you up. They lift you up. I think the dance beat is cool.
Definitely, I agree.
What else do I like? I like
Oh, good question. What do you like in a partner? Because everybody knows now that Jimmy James is single. So what's the ideal partner for you?
A partner that does not want to wear makeup and does not want to wear dresses.
Really?
Yeah.
Honestly, really?
Yeah.
I guess that surprises me.
I think, why would it surprise you?
Honestly, because one of the things I find, like, in relationships, not that I would know because I'm going to die single at this rate, I've noticed that one of the things that, honey, take a look at my picture sometime. Let me tell you, we could swap stories all night long about this one. But no, I'm getting old. I'm 44. I'm gaining weight. My fat ass is sitting on a couch, and I'm talking to one of the best possible people I could in the middle of the afternoon. But I can't find a date to save my freaking life. But no, in relationships, what I find is if you have something in common, like, I'm an author and I'm a radio show host, so I gravitate to people who are in the same field or have done the same thing. So that's what I mean by I'm kind of taken aback by that.
That's not for me. I don't want. I had boyfriends who tricked me, who played like they were really like down to earth and
right.
quote unquote normal. I don't know how to say it any other way. It's just quote unquote normal, and then suddenly I find out that they've learned from me where to order wigs from. This starting to do shows in their hometown. I'm like, no, that's not no. Somebody who is not, even if they're not in show business, I think would be great.
Really?
If somebody maybe doesn't want to go out to the clubs, I mean, I'll go out to the clubs and they can do something else. I have to go out to clubs still to some extent, but I'm really, I don't know, I think I'm simple. I think I'm a simple person. I'm down to earth. I know I played the part of Marilyn Monroe, but I was just playing a part. And you know what? I felt sad in a way that she couldn't step out of it, and I could. I could take the wig off, the dress off. The boobs were built into the dresses, by the way. So
right.
I never even touched them. They were built into the dresses. And I could take the hip pads off and then wash the makeup off, and I was Jimmy James. And that wasn't that easy for her. And I always felt that in a way, like the show's over, I'm done. Okay, now I can be myself. And I was never embarrassed to be myself. I don't care if I'm thin or fat or whatever. I'm not embarrassed to be myself. I will never be embarrassed to live my own life. It's embarrassing to live somebody else's life. If you're doing that full time, to live someone else's life, that's the embarrassment. And I have an issue with age. I'll have to explain this to you. I got engrossed and involved with the Marilyn. You know, my Marilyn years were about like almost 20 years. And I feel like there was a lot of time spent. It's a trade-off. I got a career out of it, and I got a name, a notoriety from it, and I'm very grateful for that. But I also was not quite living my own life in a lot of ways. My references for a lot of things was to keep my references and mindset was to be would be to reference that era in which she lived in.
Right.
So my era, I feel like, was when the 80s were going on, and I was dancing to Madonna and Culture Club and Annie Lennox and, you know, all the other 80s things, Cyndi Lauper and everything. That was like my era. But during that era, I was in the Marilyn years. And so a lot of my mindset was kind of, in a way, you living in the past. And I'm very conscious about the here and now and what's going on now and what's happening now.
Nice. Very nice answer. Now, I have some very interesting questions about Marilyn, and then we'll move back to you a little bit. In case any of you didn't catch that, from 83 to 97 means that Jimmy James had done Marilyn for a course of 14 years before, of course, that part of your life ceased to exist. I know that I have watched you in interviews talk about having the same facial structure as hers. Other impersonators have, and I've heard this from other people, mention this to others, that when they were portraying her in some manner, shape, or form, that they could sense her presence or feel her presence. Now, I guess I don't know, has that ever happened to you? That's one question. And here's the second one. If you ever...
Okay.
Here's the second one. I've watched enough Jimmy James interviews and listened to you talk long enough to hear this, and you guys are going to get a kick out of this, right? Here's Mr. Jimmy James, right? Chooses to portray Marilyn Monroe, and then he turns around in an interview. Here's what he said. Just to let you know, I hate women's clothing. Now, that's the ironic paradox. I'm like, here he is talking, right? And he portrays the iconic Marilyn Monroe and then turns around and says, just so you know, I hate women's clothing. I'm like, what the hell is that? So perhaps explain to the both of us, or all of us rather, who are listening, what the hell? I'm like, can you answer both those questions?
I think I said I hate wearing women's clothes.
Maybe that's it. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to paraphrase you inappropriately, but it was something about women's clothing.
I hate wearing women's clothing, and if I didn't say it that way, that's what I meant.
Okay.
It's uncomfortable. It's not built for my shape. It's not, you know, the shoulders are always too small, and I mean, I'm not turned on by women's clothing. What I'm turned on by is acting.
Okay.
What I am turned on by is illusion. What I am turned on by is an actor playing a part that is so not him, and an actor who transforms himself. We could be talking about Charlize Theron. Remember, she played that lesbian murder killer, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Remember,
I know. Monster. Yeah.
When she transformed herself, and you go, oh, my God, that looks nothing like her. Like, like, where is Charlize Theron? She's gone. Like, who? Oh, my God. That's what I'm fascinated about. So, in that respect, I loved my job of playing Marilyn. I was an actor who transformed himself so well that you couldn't see me anymore. I turned into that persona. And that's what was exciting to me. So the dress was a tool. It was a tool to help me in the recreation, in the transformation into Marilyn Monroe.
Okay. Did you ever, was there ever a drawback besides wearing the clothing as far as playing Marilyn? Were there any other things besides, I hate wearing, women's clothing? Were there other drawbacks that you found that you thought, this is such a pain in the ass? Do you know what I mean?
Yes. It was at a time when people were really, I'm going to be honest, somebody's calling us to let that clip. Okay, there's the second one. I don't want to be cut off. I have to be honest, in Hollywood, when I lived here, 89 to 93, Hollywood was homophobic. And even though there was nothing in my show that was per se gay. I mean, I didn't even say the word gay on stage. I just impersonated Marilyn, and I did voice impressions, mainly of all women, and I was a guy doing it. But I didn't push gay onto anybody. I didn't have like a gay agenda. Hollywood was very homophobic. It was during the AIDS crisis. I think Elizabeth Taylor stepped in and made everything okay and cool. Joan Rivers, I believe, was the first one to, hug babies and go to hospitals where there was gay victims dying of AIDS. It was a very strange time. It wasn't like, liberal Hollywood now where, everyone has a token gay on their show. They didn't do that back then in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, because AIDS was still such a severe and horrible disease. I think people were just freaked out by gay. It's like, I think Elizabeth Taylor really stepped in and changed a lot of things, changed the perception of that, But it was a tough time. The biggest obstacles and the things that was a pain in the ass is like, I was not respected in the industry. I was considered just a lookalike. I was just, if you're a man impersonating the world's most famous, iconic Hollywood sex symbol, like, who the hell are you? The other thing was when they tried to sue me from the Monroe estate. Mind you, they're not suing any other Marilyn lookalike or impersonator, just me.
Right. Oh, sure. I imagine.
Roger Richmond was an ass to me, and I yelled back at him. I said, "Go ahead and sue me. I could always use more publicity."
Huh.
He never did,
definitely.
but he threatened to sue me, and it was so horrible. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to stop doing this, and nobody gets Marilyn.
Right.
See what I'm saying? I kind of got bitchy back with these stupid lawyers, and of course they couldn't sue me. They were just taking advantage of my youth. They were just taking advantage of me, and I was not making tons of money. I was just a nightclub performer. It wasn't. We didn't have iTunes, or I could say, everybody go to iTunes and buy something. I was just a nightclub performer. Now, that being said, I worked a lot of nightclubs. But I worked a lot, but
no comment.
It wasn't like It wasn't like today's standards where you can make tons more money.
Oh, certainly.
It was hard work. It was really hard.
Oh, definitely. I want to ask you this because I'm curious to know this, because I think I know the answer already, but you know that there are just legions of people out there who would jump to sing your praises, me being one of them, obviously, as it relates to your performances in general. Now, I've been privy to watch you with Marilyn and other people. Not everyone else has. They usually are synonymous with you and Marilyn. If I were to ask Jimmy James, how would he rate himself as performing as Marilyn? And second of all, that last performance that you did of her last night, what was that like for you?
It was uneventful. There's a picture I put on my Facebook towards the end. I say, I never really wanted to show this picture, but this is the moment. I remember when that picture was taken, it was like I literally felt that her spirit had left me. It was done with me. It was done.
Really?
Yeah, it literally was. And I never felt like she inhabited me. There was a flow that was coming through me, some kind of an energy. I should say an energy that would come through me. And towards the end there, it just felt like I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't be true to playing the part anymore. It was gone. I didn't feel it. I didn't feel it anymore. And it was gone.
Wow.
It's excruciating to think that you can, on a nightly basis, pull yourself up to look like that if you don't feel it. It's excruciating.
Wow.
And how would I rate myself? You know, if you asked me that years ago, I probably wouldn't have given myself a big rating because I always thought in 97 when I retired from performing as Marilyn, I always thought, oh, somebody else can do this. Somebody else will be able to do this. And it's funny, I haven't seen it.
Really?
And I know that sounds arrogant.
I've seen a whole lot of her. Really?
I've tried to help people. And I've tried to help people do it, but you know, the love is in the details. If you're passionate and if you love Marilyn, if you really respect her, you have to do the work because there was a person in there. There was a truly gifted, amazing artist inside of Marilyn Monroe.
Oh God, yeah.
And I learned that. I learned that when I studied her, because I thought it was just going to be studying some dumb blonde and, you know, what all the cliches people would say. And then as you study her, you go, oh my God, she was really brilliant. So I'd rate myself pretty high.
Would you say you're a 10? Do it. Just do it.
Depends which weight fluctuation you catch me at.
Oh, my God, shut it. I'm just going to go on record publicly because this is media to say she's like an 11 plus, so don't let her bullshit you. Way above the 11 mark. I ought to know. I've been watching her for 2 frickin' days. I would know. I've seen all the costumes. I've seen it. Okay, so there you go. Okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to ask you just a few more Marilyn questions because this is the Marilyn Tribute Show. But then we're going to go back to Jimmy James for a little bit.
You can talk. Hey, listen, you can talk about whatever you want. I don't care.
Really? Okay, because at the end, you asked for it. That's all I'm going to say. You asked for it.
I don't care.
We'll get that to the end. Okay. There's 2 more Marilyn questions that I have that are specific to her, and then I'm going to put one comment in, and then we'll do those 2 questions. Just so you know, I just had a birthday, July 15th. The one thing that I asked for, I have a dear friend of mine who does Marilyn in Milwaukee, and she couldn't make it to the party. And now you just told me that the spirit of Marilyn is gone. So you've shattered every possible moment I had here because I said, if I begged Jimmy James, could maybe Marilyn just come out for like 30 seconds to play? I'm like, oh. You missed my birthday, but I guess you can't get your mojo back, can you?
I guess you forgot that I'm still a voice impressionist.
That is not the same, okay? I don't get the outfit. I don't get to see the watch. I don't get to see any of that. How about if I come to California? Maybe?
No, I don't dress up as Marilyn anymore. I stopped doing it. In 97, I stopped dressing up as her.
Well, that's beside the point. Maybe you have a new friend who might beg you to do that. I'm just saying. Okay, boo. This is my one boo of the show.
And I have to say, can I be clear? I have no regrets.
Really?
When I left it, I have no regrets whatsoever. I'm very, very happy having moved on to do other things and live my life. And I'm grateful for the gifts that Marilyn gave me. She gave me those gifts.
Good for you. Good for you. That's a really good attitude. That's a very healthy attitude.
I left it intact. I left it intact. You will never see what Marilyn looks like at 40. Not from Jimmy James. You'll never see it.
Good for you. I like that, though. I do. I mean, I'm disappointed, yes, but I like that. You're at peace with that, and that's a good thing. So these are 2 very pertinent questions, I think, and I like these 2 questions. 2 different things here. First of all, I'm curious to ask you the various tools that you utilized when you were preparing to be Marilyn, meaning did you watch footage, whatever you did? That was one question. And then second of all, and this is just me as being a Marilyn fan, if Marilyn were alive today and she had saw you perform, what do you think she might have said about you?
It's interesting because I did read that her and her friend went to the world famous Pinocchio in San Francisco because she had heard there was a Marilyn impersonator, and they left before the show was over, so she must have not liked it, is what I think. I think she didn't like what she saw. So I love the fact that she was open-minded and wanted to see it and was hoping to like it, but maybe the Queen wasn't doing a good job. So I would hope that she would be proud of what I was doing.
I am certain of it. I am 100% certain of it. Although I've been sitting here for 2 hours doing a tribute show hoping that she'd shake a leaf or actually talk to me or throw something or move a Marilyn movie, and she hasn't, so I'm kind of screwed. So we're working on borrowed, I got to go to my psychic later and be like, did she like it? Was she listening? Can she even hear me? Does she think I'm a dumbass? I'm just still waiting. Jury's not out on that yet. Got to wait for my psychic
Is your radio show always about Marilyn every day?
No, honey. I have, well, we'll get into this. I'll do the quick synopsis because we are on a tribute show. But I have 3 different shows. This is Sin's Chat Corner. I do celebrities, artists, musicians, charities, and businesses on this show. I did a tribute show because Sin, that's me, one of my favorite things in the whole wide world is Marilyn Monroe. I relate to her on so many levels, it's sickening. And so today it's just a special tribute show. I also do a show where I interview cast members from Sons of Anarchy, and now I'm starting a 3rd show called Sin's Canadian Connections, all things Canadian, because I'm interviewing Shirley Douglas, who's the mother of Kiefer Sutherland, and I'll give you a little secret, but don't tell anyone, shh, like everybody doesn't know. I have a mad crush on Kiefer Sutherland. I am on a mission to get 1 date, just 1, not 100, not marry him, just 1. How crazy is that?
No,
I am a certifiable loon. Yes, it is, honey. He's Kiefer Sutherland, Jack Bauer, Eye for an Eye, kid is, dad is Donald Sutherland. That's bananas. I got to get a little higher up on the rung. But I got his mom on the show, so there's hope. You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, you should do it.
Well, I'm crossing my fingers. I keep trying to collect celebrities in my pocket, and I keep asking them, do you know Kiefer? Do you know how to get a hold of him? Do you know how to find him? Do you know how to do this? Hello, I'm a girl. I dedicated a whole frickin' show to Canada. Is that not a love letter? Okay, ding, ding, buddy. If you're listening, hello, right here. I'm glad. I'm entertaining Jimmy James. Actual laughter. I might be succeeding. Oh, my gosh. The other question that I started was, and I don't think that we got to that, or I didn't get an answer, was before a show, or like in general, even when you contemplated being Marilyn, how did you go about preparing in general? I mean, just how did you do it? Just a shit ton of research? What's involved with becoming that?
Well, there's no YouTube back then, so you couldn't just, it was too hard. All I did, I got to see movies at the film festival that was showing in San Antonio at that time. So I got to see movies, and whenever a documentary would come on TV, I would watch it and I mostly read and tried to understand her personality.
And her mannerisms, etc.
Yeah, and I'm glad I kind of got it right because now looking back on YouTube of her, I think I got it right. I got the personality. I remember one time I was looking for fabric, and it was the very beginning of my career. I think it was 83 or something, and it was in San Antonio. I was looking for some fabric. There was a little Asian woman, a Japanese woman, who owned the fabric store, and I told her what I did, and I said to her, I'm trying to work up an act where I impersonate Marilyn Monroe. And she says, oh, Marilyn Monroe. She said, I was a little girl when she came to Japan. I said, really? You saw her in person? Yeah, I saw her with my mother. I was a little girl. And I said, what was your what was your impression of Marilyn Monroe? And she said, oh, she was so cute. And I was like, the sex symbol, Marilyn Monroe, the like sex goddess, Marilyn Monroe, a little girl describing her as cute. That was the key. If a little girl perceived her to be cute, I had to pull that into my acting technique. There had to be a cuteness about her. And as you know, there is a cuteness. She's cute.
Oh, God, yes. Oh, my God, yes.
Cute.
In so many ways.
Cute. Think about it. Cute. Mm-hmm. What a word to describe the sex goddess of all time.
I know, right? Exactly.
See? I was doing research. I was doing research for whoever I could get. Oh, one time I called Tom Ewell. Don't even ask me. This boy I met had been hitchhiking on the road and got a ride from Tom Ewell. And he had his phone number. Oh, my God. And I finally mustered up the nerve to call him. This was in the early 80s. And I called him to ask him certain things. But they were all character study things. It wasn't anything like, it was all character study. I wanted to know her height. So I'm only like 5'5", and it turns out she was like 5'5".
Right,
I've read several reports. I read 5'4", 5'5", and 5'5.5". Those are all the reports I've seen.
I thought it was 5'5", but I could be wrong.
Yeah, it's around there. So, right, if she was 5'5.5", the wig would have given me the extra inch. So,
trust me, honey, you just throw those heels on, you got plenty of inches. You got no worries there.
Yeah.
You were just fine.
Yeah.
And you had the walk and the pose and the strut.
And then, can't remember. I have to think hard of what I asked him, but I talked to Tom Ewell on the phone. And then there was another time I spoke to this man in a record thrift shop, and he's an older man, and he had seen Marilyn in person. And I said, so what was your perception of her? And he said, he goes, this isn't just pertaining to her boobs, he said, but she was quite kind of deep in the chesty, like, and it's so funny because I have a large chest bone myself, so when I took dance class, I hated it because my chest was too forward, and I wanted to be so flat-chested that I never could be just flat. And if you look at Marilyn, her chest bone protrudes just a little bit. She's kind of chesty, besides the boobs, but there's like a chestiness about her.
I agree. And definitely, and it varies with each role and each place and each thing that I've noticed. I have noticed that. I pay a lot of attention to her physicality and her mannerisms, how she acted.
I noticed it in the Bert Stern photos when she had lost a lot of weight. You could kind of see that chest bone a little bit.
Oh, right. Oh, you betcha.
And in my study,
I lied. I have one more. Go ahead. No, I was just going to ask, because this was interjecting into my brain about this. When you're at the sketch that you're at, meaning, I'm sorry, dear. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say one more thing. How I studied the makeup for Marilyn, a lot had to do with Bert Stern's last fitting, because the camera got in so close. I was able to really get in on that makeup technique, on those close-ups.
Oh, I imagine so, definitely. One thing that occurred to me when I was sitting here and I was writing the interview the other day, I thought, let me ask you this question, because you may be not dissimilar to a lot of people I know who are artists, musicians, celebrities. Were you prone to, like, how you have, I don't want to say groupie because you're not a musician, but those same set people where that they would follow you to certain performances, etc. Did you ever have any scares of people that were really fanatical about Marilyn in a bad way, meaning not like this, but in a bad way?
Not really. I'm very friendly with the Marilyn Monroe fan club out here, called Marilyn Remembered.
Okay. Sure.
But I feel more relaxed now that I'm not doing that. But I kind of kept my distance when I was doing Marilyn because I didn't want to come across that. So I kind of protected myself in a way. There was one incident, and I wouldn't say he was a Marilyn Monroe fanatic. It's just somebody crazy. And Reagan was in office at the time, and I was traveling through the Carolinas, and I had already gotten television exposure, right? So I was already kind of a little bit famous, and I was playing the gay club in South Carolina, one of those, and some crazy person called and said he wanted to kill me, and but the cool thing about somebody wanting to kill me was that he also mentioned he wanted to kill Ronald Reagan.
Oh my God! Okay, so he's a few haystacks short of a loaf.
And so we had the recording of it, so the FBI got involved, and we never heard from him again.
Oh, creepy though.
Yeah, it was creepy. He wanted to kill Ronald Reagan, and we had that. The club owner had that on a recording, so he got that to the FBI.
Oh my goodness, how creepy! Goodness gracious!
But that was the weirdest one, I think. I think that's the weirdest one.
Okay.
And then it came into personal issues. Like I could never date anyone who was like a crazy Marilyn fan. That would have been creepy to me.
Sure. Oh, definitely. I would imagine so. That would be
okay. And you know what?
Definitely.
And you know what it comes down to is I had a strong sense of myself.
Right.
I had a strong sense of myself. I was an actor playing a part, and I never lost sight of that. You know, when I did Donahue, that queen sitting next to me, Leslie Regine, the black queen that did Diana Ross.
Yeah.
When I said I don't even like to wear women's clothing in the commercial break, she's very mean to me. And all this thing, what are you talking about? You don't like to wear women's clothing. You're wearing a woman's clothing right now. How dare you say that? That's such a lie.
Ouch.
And I could have chewed her head off at that point, but I was dressed as Marilyn, and I can't do that. The whole audience was transfixed on me. So what I did as an actor, I used her berating me to make me even more vulnerable.
Sure.
And scared. I used it to my advantage. So I used that. That has been, 20th Century Fox berating Marilyn for being late.
Right. Exactly. Correct.
I used it for my own acting skill. And if you look at that, I think you'll see me become a little bit more vulnerable as the show goes on. Except that queen berated me in a commercial break. Yeah. But it's okay. She's dead now.
She's lucky. Because I would have to go and beat her ass. Because I'd be like, I'm pro Jimmy James, so you just need to back that up before I come whoop your ass set. Sorry. A little protective there, my goodness. Yes. Oh, sadly. My gosh. Okay. Now, we have two more big questions for you, and then our time is finally up together. Oh, my God, this is getting so much easier. I am kind of a crazy fan, but I'm not there. So it's kind of like, we're okay because we're distant. I'm kidding.
Well, you're very, very sweet, and you can ask me anything you want.
How do I find Kiefer Sutherland's number? I'm kidding. You don't know that. Trust me, honey. I've been asking that for like 6 months. No, 2 years, okay? It's been 2 years of radio, okay? Hello, Canada boy. I've been posting you every day. Are you effing blind? Wake up. Okay, there was my little personal announcement.
Okay.
Kiefer Sutherland. That I'll never hear because he doesn't go on the Internet. He doesn't even listen to radio. Okay, I'm going to just have you be quiet for a minute because I'm going to tell everybody just a little bit of background material about you. I know that in the past, Jimmy has done vocal tributes to the following, which we started to preface, which is Liza Minnelli, Judy Garland, Eartha Kitt, Patsy Cline, Billie Holiday. And that list, of course, doesn't even include absolutely everyone, but those are my personal favorites. His acts in the past have found him performing center stage for some of the greatest that the world has to offer, meaning Sir Elton John, Cyndi Lauper, Boy George, Luther Vandross, and Whoopi Goldberg. Reflecting on the recording side of things, I know that you've done a number of 5 albums over the course of 10 years and I know in the past you've worked with the infamous Mark Moser as producer. I have to tell you that is just a plethora of successful living for a person who's so young. And yes, I said young. No one needs to know how old you are. In fact, I'm reasonably close, but I'm not going to tell anyone. So a couple questions relative to that. Two different things, actually, that I'd like to know. If you yourself are solely responsible for both show content, meaning when you perform musically, and also for record content when you're singing on a recording. And then second of all, did you ever get, like today I got radio show fright, have you ever just been backstage and just freaked out and thought, okay, I'm going to set certain rituals for myself to ensure this doesn't happen?
I ride on adrenaline because I could get stage fright very easily, but I ride on the adrenaline and I concentrate on all the details that have to be taken care of before I hit the stage, and I think that takes my mind off of the stage fright.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, I haven't had the stage fright to where I'm paralyzed, and I've been able to get out there and do it, you know. And there were times when I was doing Marilyn, I was like, who the hell do you think you are? You know, and
wow.
I would just,
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would just think, I had to keep looking in the mirror to remind myself, I don't look like myself anymore. And to remind myself that I look like that now. Because from my eyes looking out, everything always just looks the same.
Okay.
Just my eyes looking out to the world, everything looks the same. But the world looking at me doesn't see the same me that was before I put the illusion on.
Huh.
See what I'm saying? So people's reactions to me are different, yet I see people just the way I normally see people, but they're not seeing me the way they normally would see me.
Gotcha. Sure, I understand. Totally. I can't believe that. You are so incredible. I don't even think you realize how much you are. You're perfect for her. Too bad you're not doing it anymore, because God knows you're just like her. Holy crap!
But you know, I feel now that the times have changed and people have relaxed and kind of understood the art of a man dressing as a woman. I mean, RuPaul's Drag Race has done wonders and opened tons of doors for boys who want to dress as girls. But back in the day, nobody was doing it, other than just queens in a gay bar, and nobody really knew about that in the real world, in the big world, in the big scheme of things. Nobody really knew that. So, I mean, you know, now times have changed, but it's too bad. I'm on to other things.
No, definitely. I know. I'm going to cry when I hang up this phone. I'm going to be like, oh, my God. Jimmy James couldn't even do Marilyn for like 60 seconds. Ouch. That hurts right here. He doesn't like me. It's all right. I won't. Okay. Now to the question, as far as your content, whether it's a show where you're doing impersonations, where you're musically performing, whether you're doing a record, is it you? Are you the big dog where you're like, I write the content, I choose it, I orchestrate it, you do everything, or do you have a conglomerate of partners with you?
Like when I do what? What are you talking about?
Like when you do anything. Like, let's say, for instance, when you're doing your stage performance, is it you pick the clothing, you pick what you sing, you pick how long it is, you orchestrate that whole thing? Same thing about the recording.
Yeah. I design my own shows, and all of my shows, even though I'm doing voice impressions for the most part, all of that, what I do in my stage shows is an expression of me through the personas that I portray. So in other words, you know, like, let's just say Carol Channing. I've never really done Carol Channing on stage. I love Carol Channing. I think she's incredible, but I don't really relate to her. So I wouldn't just put it in the show for the sake of putting it in the show. Everything you see me do in my show is an expression of me.
Okay. Now, do you do the writing for the songs? I mean, not the Marilyn songs or things like that, but on your albums, do you write those songs or does someone write them for you?
I wrote all the songs. I didn't do
God,
the music
James
per
an
se.
author. Okay.
Yeah, I wrote all the lyrics. Every lyric you hear in Fashionista, I wrote.
Wonderful. Because I've
Are
heard
you going to play my
something
record,
like
Fashionista? If you don't have it.
I'm going to. Actually, what I'm going to do is because eventually in 15 minutes we're going to run out of time because we chatted so damn long. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to go back and add it on to the end of this song or at the end of this interview or at the beginning of this interview so that everybody does get to listen to it. But, yeah, I'm one step ahead of you, girlfriend. Thank you.
Oh, good.
I am not
Thank
a marketing idiot. Hello. Thanks. Okay, the next section of this interview, Jimmy James is killing me, folks. I was doing so good. I was so professional. Through the wines, through Scott, through my personal reflections, Jimmy James just blew it all to hell. Really. Totally did. So thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, these next questions are really easy because they're yes or no. They don't require an explanation, just a simple yes or no. So I'm just going to throw a few things out there. Are you aware of or have you ever seen anyone impersonate Jimmy James?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, you just shocked me. I thought you were going to say no, darn. Okay, if you had your choice, is there one person who you would want to dress up and be you?
Oh, Ross Matthews.
Oh, my God, Ross is so funny. I know who that is. He is a character. You guys, if you do not know who Ross Matthews is, type in Jay Leno Tonight Show. You will totally dig him. I totally dig him. I would have thought you would have said Russell Brand. I would have pegged you for Russell Brand. I was off on that. Darn it.
Ross the intern, Ross Matthews.
He's awesome. I love him. Okay.
He's very
I'm
sweet.
going to go on
very sweet.
Oh, I'm sure he is. Okay, next yes or no question. And this is just a personal assessment again. I'm going to assume that you favor doing impressions over music. Yes or no?
No.
Darn it. Darn. So Jimmy James is about the music. Darn. Okay. Question. Next one. Yes or no?
You didn't let me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I love them both. Is what I was wanting to say. I love them both.
Okay.
Both are expressions of me. Because I told you, I only put the people in my show that are expressions of me.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, next yes or no question. Feedback from both audiences and or celebrities, positive or negative for the most part?
Oh, positive.
Oh, of course. Not surprising at all whatsoever. Next question. This is the yes or no. Out of all the impressions that you do, tell me your favorite one. And you can't say Cher.
I can't say Cher.
No, you cannot. Already out of contention. I've already seen you do Cher. And you're a good Cher. Do you know?
We're gonna leave Marilyn out of it because that was a full-on persona.
Not fair.
That was
Come on. Why can't you pick Marilyn? Darn it.
Well, because Marilyn's not an impression. That was a full-on recreation.
But this is a Cher tribute show.
The
Correct.
impressions are just vocal.
Correct. But it is a Marilyn Monroe tribute show, so you could have said Marilyn for like 3 seconds.
Well, Marilyn is.
No.
That's a different thing. I'm very proud of that trademark that I got for myself.
Certainly.
I've only dressed as 3 people: Betty Davis, Judy Garland, and Marilyn Monroe. As far as getting in full drag for each those, but mainly I start in drag for Marilyn most of the time, 98% of the time.
Okay, I gotcha. And I've seen her do Betty Davis, folks. Another one you got to check out. I laughed my tush off the other night when I was watching her do Betty Davis. So funny with the cigarette and all. Oh my God, it was too funny. I was like, oh my God, if I were drunk, this would be even funnier. I shouldn't have said
and
that.
And there's a music video. There's a music video with real Betty Davis footage, or I think Feliz Navidad as Betty Davis.
Oh, how cute!
It's on
oh
YouTube.
My God, how cool!
Just type in Feliz Navidad, Betty Davis, Jimmy James.
Oh, my God, I totally have to check that out because that is one that I didn't check out, as a matter of fact. Now, I have two last questions, one of which is just an informational thing. But the last thing that I want to ask you, because we're almost out of time, and I'm so sad because I've enjoyed this so much. And you've made it so much easier for me than I thought. I was so afraid of you, and I'm not anymore.
No,
I'm so
you were
excited.
great.
I'm not afraid of Jimmy James.
You're good. You're a good interviewer. You shouldn't be afraid.
Oh my God! Thank you so much. I take that as a great compliment coming from you. As a matter of fact, there's only
you're
one
really
other
good.
thing.
You do a lot of homework.
Thank you. Well, that's my job, darling. If I don't come on my show and here's the wine kicking in. If I don't make you look 120% better than you are already, I have not done my job. And in the course of this interview, I hope that I've done you proper justice, definitely. The one and only other thing that I want to ask you about is just what the future holds for you. What can we expect from Jimmy James in the next year or so? Or where can we find you? Or how can people be interactive with you? I mean, we're going to go through the social media stuff, but just what are your future plans now? What do you plan on doing?
Okay. Because my website is behind and I have to find a webmaster, JimmyJames.com is not maybe the best place, but Jimmy James News, I keep in touch. That's my fan page. Jimmy James News is my fan page. They can drop in there, and I talk to fans I actually talk to my fans. I talk to them.
Oh my God. I could talk to you again.
I take that seriously.
Okay,
Jimmy James News, my fan page is I take that seriously, and I do that. And I'm going to be working on my Marilyn Monroe documentary and sifting through tons of footage, but this is going to take a bit of time. And I'm looking for the filmmaker. I'm looking for a good filmmaker to make this film because I want it distributed properly, and I want all my fans and Marilyn fans to be able to get a hold of this documentary, and so that they can finally hear the true story of all the things that happened to me, good and bad, during the Marilyn years. They need to know all the things that I was up against and all the good things that happened too, you know?
Definitely. I agree with you. And I want to throw this out here real quickly before I forget. And just correct me when I'm finished so I can let everybody know. Jimmy James has a Facebook profile, but don't even try to friend him. You can follow him, but let's get real. I can't be his friend, and apparently neither can you, but you can follow him on Facebook. Twitter, again, to remind everybody, at Jimmy James LA, and that's all one word together. JimmyJames.com is what you've referenced, and then you can also go to iTunes and YouTube, anywhere else social media that I forgot.
Jimmy James News is my fan page.
That's right, Jimmy James News, and nowhere else that you can think of off the top of your head.
Not yet. They're trying to get me on Pinterest, but I can't keep up.
Oh, I hear you. Tell me about it. I know exactly what you're talking about. Now, Jimmy James, before I let you go, or I should say before you get cut off, let me just tell you a few things. I will, because there's not enough time, but tomorrow I will definitely integrate your song into this, or I will try to integrate your song into this interview session, the tribute show, so that everybody can listen to Fashionista. The last thing that I do on my show, typically I would do this about everybody, meaning Gillette, Scott, and everyone, but we've just run out of time. So let me do what I always do on my show. The last part of Sin's Chat Corner, I take 30 seconds to tell my guest exactly what I think of him. So I hope you're sitting down, because I'm about ready to tell you what I think of you, Jimmy James, before I let you go.
Okay.
This is what I think of Jimmy James, everyone. So listen loud and clear, and that includes you, my dear guest. There are exactly 5 things that I know to be true about you, and typically most guests only get 3, so consider yourself lucky. This is what I've learned about talking about Jimmy James, talking to Jimmy James, and then everything that I've learned. First and foremost, and do not take this the wrong way, I would 100% consider you to be high class, whether you're dressed in heels and a dress, or whether you're walking around in a pair of sweatpants and you're going around in LA and going to check out a movie. High class is extended by many different factors: how you behave in life, what you contribute to society, how you present yourself as a performer and as a person. From what I get and how you emulate on screen, or whether you're on YouTube or any of your performances, what I gather from you is that you love life. You love the life that you're in. You truly do somewhere inside there. Love the person that you are. You're magnificent. You're funny. You're sassy. You're sarcastic. You're saucy is what my parents would say back in the day. You truly, to me, have such a gift. And again, I'm going to go out on record saying, I don't think you know just what a gift you've brought to me, to everyone that's been listening, to everybody that goes to see you. I would love, at some given point in time when I'm out in LA, to come and meet you personally, because I have nothing but love and respect and I just adore you. I just adore you. That's all I can say about you. That's it. That's all I got for you.
Well, that is very sweet, and I love everything you said. And unlike Kiefer Sutherland, you have my number. You have my number, and you can call me whenever you're in Los Angeles.
Oh, my God, how absolutely wonderful is this? It's like a hookup without a hookup. Jimmy James gave me his phone number right there today. Isn't this awesome? And he used to do Marilyn, but not anymore, but that's okay. The last thing, and this is really the last thing because we were going to get cut off in like 4 minutes. The last thing that I do want to say to you, Jimmy James, and I will get a hold of you via email to reiterate this, but everybody who has been on my show up until right now, as a matter of fact, I'm giving everyone the option to be in a book. I'm working on a book right now where everybody who's ever been on my shows, any of them, can have a full-page spread. You can have your pictures. You can have a write-up about you. You'll have a picture with me in there. I have a publisher already, and I would be humbled more than you could possibly imagine if you would consider doing that. Just throwing it out.
It's done. It's done, yes.
Oh, my God. Jimmy James said, oh, my God. I'm going to have a glass of wine or 12 of that Marilyn bottle I got in here. Maybe you should bring your ass over here. We can drink Marilyn wine together. Just saying. I'm like, that's for both worlds. All right, my lovely. Having said that, I must let you go because I have to say my final goodbye. I cannot thank you enough, Jimmy James, for taking the time. Do not think that I will neglect you because I would not be shocked if Stalker Girl is getting a hold of you in the next hour and be like, what up? So I will be in contact with you very soon. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate this.
Thank you. I appreciate it more than you, so thank you so much.
Oh, don't worry. I'll be asking like 12 more times to come back, so don't worry.
Oh,
now I'm
that's
like a
fine.
legitimate groupie. I'm like, Jimmy James, I'm not worthy, I'm not worthy. Awesome.
That's fine. I
Wonderful.
love it. I love it. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I'll let you go for now. I will be in touch shortly about the book and all good things, and I will post up all your information on my page and my show page so everyone can see it. Now go off and have a great time tonight, and I will be in touch very soon.
Thank you, Sin.
All right, sweetheart. Have a good night. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.
All right, bye. Okay, folks, I realize that we've almost gone to the 3-hour mark, and I apologize for that. But the reality of the situation is we're talking Marilyn Monroe. In the last 3 or 4 minutes here, just as you heard me say, Jimmy James, I will go ahead and put Fashionista onto this show, so tomorrow everybody should be able to hear it. I want to start out by saying, first and foremost, again, to all of my guests, Gillette from Marilyn Wines, Jimmy James, Marilyn Monroe impersonator, also Scott Fortner with the largest Marilyn Monroe collection, and even to the Hollywood Museum. I understand that we had some complications getting you on air, and I apologize for that. And I do hope that we will be able to reschedule that very soon. Just to reiterate real quickly, Jimmy James, Facebook presence, which is Jimmy James, Twitter handle, which is @JimmyJamesLA altogether. His performances can be found on YouTube and iTunes. JimmyJames.com is the website. And also go ahead and check out Jimmy James News, because as I understand it, he is on there regularly. As far as the museum itself, they have a presence on Facebook, www.thehollywoodmuseum.com. They can be found on YouTube, and the Twitter handle is @HollywoodMuseum. As it relates to Scott Fortner, www.themarilynmonroecollection.com, where he also is inclusive of having his own blog spot. In addition, Twitter, which is @MMCollection. And then on Facebook, you can find him on his personal page and also the Marilyn Monroe Collection. And then finally, we have Gillette, which is Marilyn Wines, www.marilynwines.com. Facebook is Marilyn Merlot. The Twitter handle is @Marilyn_Merlot, and that's spelled MERLOT. And, of course, as he had prefaced, Pine Tourist, you can also find him there. And finally, before I forget, to all of you listeners, to all of you fans, I do hope that I have done my very best to make Marilyn Monroe look like the woman that you want her to. I hope that I've paid dear homage to her. Hopefully sometime tonight something will move in my house to let me know that she has actually listened to us or appreciates it. God, I sure hope so. One final reminder to everybody on Sin's Chat Corner tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. Milwaukee musician Tom Perlongo will be coming onto the show. Please do your best to try to go ahead and listen in. I thank you also very much for being patient and listening to our almost 3-hour show. Please continue to support Marilyn, her movies, her endeavors, the estate of Marilyn Monroe, Marilyn Wines, Jimmy Johnson, Scott Fortner, and the Hollywood Museum. I bode you all a very good evening, and I hope to see you tomorrow.
What you doing?
Ran out of space on my phone, so I'm deleting some stuff. By singing dog. By goal.
I pronounce you.
By wedding ceremony.
Stop. At Metro PCS, you get 2 free phones with twice as much memory.
Really? Don't say bye to your memories. Switch to Metro PCS and get 2 free LG K20 Plus phones with 32 gigs when you switch 2 lines. Metro PCS. Wireless. Figure it out. Coverage not available in some areas. Sales tax not included in phone price. Excludes numbers on the T-Mobile network. See store for details and terms and conditions.
What you doing?
Ran out of space on my phone, so I'm deleting some stuff. By singing dog. By goal.
I pronounce you.
By wedding ceremony.
Stop. At Metro PCS, you get 2 free phones with twice as much memory.
Really? Don't say bye to your memories. Switch to Metro PCS and get 2 free LG K20 Plus phones with 32 gigs when you switch 2 lines. Metro PCS. Wireless. Figure it out. Coverage not available in some areas. Sales tax not included in phone price. Excludes numbers on the T-Mobile network. See store for details and terms and conditions.